Presented by Soundlibra.com. Explore more titles via the link in the description or at Soundlibra.com. Welcome back. Last time we set the stage for Unbreakable Habits.
I'm excited to get into the mechanics of this. Though before we jump in, a quick heads up for everyone listening. We're going to be talking about behavioral changes and mental wellness strategies. But just remember this is for educational purposes and isn't medical or professional health advice. You should always consult with a professional for your specific needs.
That's a great point. So, today we're diving deep into why habits are so critical, and more importantly, why they matter more than motivation.
The age-old question, motivation versus discipline, or in this case, habits. I'm always tempted to wait for that burst of energy.
It's a seductive trap. Motivation is like a fleeting spark. It can ignite something, sure, but it's not reliable for sustained effort. Think of it like a firework, brilliant but gone in an instant. Habits, on the other hand, are like embers, glowing steadily and providing continuous warmth and light.
Numbers. I like that. So, habits provide that steady foundation, regardless of our mood or energy levels.
Precisely. Habits are the compounding interest of self-improvement. Small, consistent actions, repeated over time, lead to remarkable results. They become automatic processes that require minimal cognitive load.
Automatic processes. So, once a habit is established, it doesn't feel like a major effort anymore.
That's the magic. When something becomes a habit, it moves from the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making and conscious thought, to the basal ganglia, which handles automatic behaviors. It's like learning to drive. Initially, it's a lot of conscious effort to remember every step. But eventually, you can drive and have a conversation without thinking about each gear shift or turn.
That makes so much sense. It's about outsourcing the effort to your brain's automated systems. But how do we get them there? Some habits feel so stubbornly resistant to becoming automatic.
That's often because we're trying to build habits based on motivation alone, or we're trying to implement habits that are too complex for our current lifestyle. We might say, I'm going to exercise for an hour every single day. That's a huge leap from doing nothing. It requires immense motivation to sustain, and it's ripe for failure.
And then when we miss one day, it feels like a complete failure, and we might as well give up. We're back to that fragile boat hitting a wave.
Exactly. That's why we need to understand the structure of habits and how to build them intentionally. It's not about willpower. It's about creating a system. A habit has three main components: a cue, a routine, and a reward.
A cue, a routine, and a reward. Can you break that down for us?
Certainly, the cue is the trigger for the behavior. It could be a time of day, a location, a particular emotion, or even the presence of certain people. For instance, the cue for brushing your teeth is often waking up or going to bed.
Okay, so the cue is the when or where or what that signals it's time to act. What's the routine?
The routine is the behavior itself, the action you take. In the teeth brushing example, the routine is the act of brushing. For a habit like exercising, the routine could be going for a 20-minute run.
So, cue leads to routine. And the reward?
The reward is what you get out of performing the routine. This is what makes the habit stick. The reward for brushing your teeth is that clean feeling and fresh breath. For a run, the reward might be the endorphin rush, the feeling of accomplishment, or the long-term health benefits. This reward reinforces the habit loop, making it more likely you'll repeat it the next time the cue appears.
Cue, routine, reward. So, for a habit to truly stick, it needs a clear trigger, an action, and a satisfying outcome.
Precisely. And when we try to build habits without considering these elements, or when the reward isn't strong enough, or the cue isn't clear enough, the habit struggles to form. This is why focusing on motivation is a losing strategy. Motivation might prompt you to start the cue routine reward loop, but it's the loop itself, particularly the reward, that makes it automatic and resilient.
So, rather than saying, I need to be motivated to go to the gym, it's more effective to say, when I finish my workday, I will go to the gym for 30 minutes, routine, and I will feel energized and accomplished afterward, reward.
You've hit the nail on the head, and we can engineer these loops to be more effective. We can choose cues that are already part of our lives, routines that are manageable, and rewards that are genuinely satisfying. This makes the habit less dependent on our fluctuating motivation.
This makes so much intuitive sense. Instead of fighting our nature or relying on willpower, we're working with our brain's natural tendencies.
Exactly. Habits don't require you to be a different person. They require you to be a slightly more consistent one. And that consistency is built through understanding and intentionally designing these key routine reward loops.
So, to recap for our listeners today, we've learned that habits are our most powerful tool for sustained improvement because they become automatic brain processes, unlike fleeting motivation. We've also learned about the three pillars of habit formation: a cue that triggers the behavior, a routine, which is the behavior itself, and a reward that reinforces the loop.
And this understanding is the bedrock upon which we build truly unbreakable habits. Next time, we'll explore a powerful rule for making sure you never miss a habit, building unstoppable momentum.
The never miss twice rule. That sounds fascinating and incredibly practical. I'm already anticipating how this will help avoid that feeling of complete derailment.
It's a game changer, and it directly addresses how to handle those inevitable dips in consistency. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we introduced unbreakable habits. Now let's tackle the myth of motivation.
It's so true, Alex. We talk about finding motivation as if it's a lost object we can just stumble upon. But what happens when that feeling fades? It feels like the whole habit crumbles with it.
Exactly. And that's where the disconnect lies. We often treat habits as something that requires a constant spark of desire. We tie our commitment to how we feel on any given day. But relying on motivation is actually the weakest foundation for lasting change.
That sounds a little counterintuitive. Isn't motivation the engine that drives us to start things?
It can be. Motivation is like a powerful but unpredictable gust of wind. It can propel you forward very quickly, but can also die down just as fast, leaving you stranded. Think about a time you felt incredibly motivated to start a new workout routine. You probably went all out for a few days, right?
Oh, absolutely. New gym gear, early mornings, the whole 9 yards. And then maybe a late night at work, or just feeling a little tired, and suddenly that motivation was gone. And with it, the workout stopped.
Precisely. And this is the core problem. Motivation is an emotion, and emotions are fleeting. They rise and fall based on a million different factors: sleep, stress, what you ate, the weather, even what's trending on social media. If your habits are anchored to this emotional roller coaster, they're doomed to be fragile.
So, if motivation isn't the key, what is? You mentioned a superior approach in the introduction.
The superior approach is building systems, specifically habit systems. Instead of chasing motivation, we want to create structures that make desired behaviors happen regardless of how we feel. This is about disassociating your commitment from your feelings.
Disassociating commitment from feelings, can you break that down for us? It sounds a bit like being a robot.
Not at all. It's more about being intelligent and strategic. Imagine you have a powerful machine you want to run every day. You wouldn't wait until you felt like turning it on. You'd have a system. Plug it in, press the button, and it goes. You've automated the process. Habits are like that for your behavior. We want to build a system where the desired action happens almost automatically, with minimal reliance on willpower or feeling inspired.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. So, it's not about finding the motivation to do the habit, but building a system that does the habit for you.
Exactly. And this is where the concept of identity comes into play, which we'll explore more later. But for now, understand this. Your habits are how you embody your identity. If you want to be a healthy person, you don't wait to feel motivated to eat well. You act like a healthy person by consistently choosing nutritious foods. The actions solidify the identity, and the identity reinforces the actions. It's a positive feedback loop.
So, the system is the bridge between who you want to be and what you actually do, no matter what mood you're in.
That's a fantastic way to put it, Lisa. The habit system is your proactive strategy for being the person you want to be. It's about designing your life so that the right actions are the path of least resistance. Instead of asking yourself, do I feel like going for a run today? Your system ensures you're already dressed in your running clothes by the time that question even forms.
That makes so much sense. It shifts the focus from an internal, unreliable source, our feelings, to an external, reliable structure that we can design and control.
Precisely. And this is the foundation of unbreakable habits. When you're running on motivation alone, a single setback can feel catastrophic. You miss a day, and suddenly your motivation plummets, and you think, well, I've already broken it. Might as well give up. But when you have a robust habit system, one misstep doesn't break your stride. You simply get back on track the next opportunity you have.
It reframes failure, doesn't it? It's not a personal failing, but a sign that your system might need a tweak.
Absolutely. And that's a huge point we'll revisit. For now, let's solidify this initial concept. Motivation is a fickle friend, but a strong habit system is your dependable ally. We want to build routines that are robust, not reliant. We want to make our desired behaviors as automatic as possible, so they happen even when inspiration is nowhere to be found.
So, to recap for our listeners, we've moved beyond the idea that we need to constantly feel motivated to stick to our goals. Motivation is unreliable because it's an emotion. Instead, we need to focus on building effective habit systems. These systems create structures that make the desired actions easy and automatic, disassociating our commitment from our feelings. This allows us to act as the person we want to be, regardless of our current mood, and builds resilience so that one missed day doesn't derail our progress.
You've got it, Lisa. And this is just the beginning. In the next episode, we'll delve into a powerful rule that helps prevent those one-off missed days from becoming a pattern, the never miss twice rule. It's a simple yet profound concept for maintaining consistency.
Ooh, I'm already intrigued. Next episode, the power of the never miss twice rule.
Welcome back. Last time, we explored why habits are so much more powerful than fleeting motivation. Now, we're talking about a simple rule that can make or break your habit building journey.
This is episode 3, and we're discussing the never miss twice rule. It's a principle so intuitive, you'll wonder why you haven't been using it all along.
I remember when I first heard about this. My initial thought was, okay, so just don't miss a day. But it's much more nuanced than that, isn't it?
Exactly. The core idea is this. Life happens. You're going to miss a day of your new habit. Maybe you're sick, maybe you have a surprise project deadline, or perhaps you just wake up feeling completely off. You miss your workout, you skip your morning journaling, you don't drink your planned glass of water. That's okay.
And that's where the twice comes in, I assume.
Precisely. The never miss twice rule is about acknowledging that a single missed day is an exception, not the start of a free-for-all. The danger isn't missing one day. It's allowing that one missed day to snowball into 2, then 3, and before you know it, the habit is gone. Think of it like a tiny crack in a dam. If you only focus on that one crack, it might not be a big deal. But if you ignore it and the pressure continues, that crack can widen and lead to a complete breach.
That's a great way to put it. When I was first trying to build the habit of reading for 30 minutes each evening, I had this all or nothing mindset. If I got pulled into work late one night and missed my reading time, I'd think, well, that's it. The streak is broken. I'll start again tomorrow. And then tomorrow would often become the next week.
And that's the trap. The never miss twice rule is your emergency brake. It's designed to prevent those small slip-ups from derailing your entire progress. So, you missed your reading last night? Fine. Your goal now, your absolute priority, is to pick up that book tonight. You do not let it happen a second night in a row.
It takes the pressure off of perfection, doesn't it? And that's crucial because, as we discussed, motivation is unreliable. We can't will ourselves to be perfect, but we can create very simple rules to guide our behavior when perfection isn't on the table.
Indeed. This rule is about building resilience. It's about understanding that setbacks are inevitable, but they don't have to be catastrophic. We're not aiming for a flawless execution of our habits every single day. That's an unrealistic and, frankly, exhausting standard. We're aiming for a high success rate with a very clear, almost automatic response to a missed day.
So, Lisa, how does this rule specifically help us move past the motivation roller coaster we talked about earlier?
Great question. Motivation is like a spark. It can ignite a new habit, but it fades quickly. Habits, on the other hand, are like well-laid tracks for a train. They guide you forward even when the engine is sputtering. The never miss twice rule is a critical part of building those dependable tracks. When you miss a day, your initial reaction might be disappointment or a dip in motivation.
I definitely felt that. That feeling of I failed.
But if you immediately commit to not missing the next day, you bypass that prolonged period of demotivation. You're not dwelling on the failure, you're actively implementing the solution. This immediate rebound preserves your momentum and reinforces the habit's importance without requiring a surge of willpower. You're not summoning motivation, you're following a predefined protocol.
So, instead of thinking, I really don't feel like reading tonight because I missed last night, it becomes, I missed last night, so I have to read tonight to stick to my rule. It shifts the internal dialogue from justification to action.
Exactly. It transforms the missed day from a symbol of failure into a learning opportunity that prompts immediate corrective action. It's a small shift in perspective, but the impact is enormous. It's like learning to ski. You're going to fall. Anyone who skis accepts that. But a good skier gets back up immediately and keeps going. They don't lie on the slope feeling sorry for themselves because they fell once.
That analogy is spot on. And it brings us to the practical side. How does someone implement this never miss twice rule effectively?
The first step, as we've hinted at, is simply to decide on this rule. Make a conscious commitment. If I miss a day of my new habit, I will do it the very next day, no excuses. Write it down, tell a friend, make it official.
So, awareness is the first step. What's next?
Next is to define missing. What constitutes missing your habit? If your habit is going to the gym for an hour and you only manage a 20-minute walk, does that count as missing it? Or is it better to have done something? This ties into the concept of minimum viable habit that we'll explore later, but for now, be clear about what constitutes a miss versus a partial success. Generally, for this rule, a miss means completely skipping the intended activity.
That makes sense. So, specificity is key.
Absolutely. Then, when a miss happens, and it will, the crucial part is the immediate pivot. Don't wait. Don't rationalize. Just do the habit the following day. It doesn't have to be perfect or as long as usual, but it needs to happen. Think of it as a recalibration.
I'm starting to see how this directly combats the inertia that often follows a missed day. Instead of getting stuck in a loop of I missed, so I'm a failure, so why bother? It's I missed, so I'm getting right back on track.
Precisely. And this rule builds a hidden layer of resilience into your system. You're not just building the habit, you're building your capacity to maintain the habit even when life throws curveballs. It's about creating a robust, anti-fragile system around your new behavior. It's about learning to dance in the rain, not just when the sun is shining.
And that confidence That knowledge that you can recover from a missed day is incredibly powerful for long-term adherence. It's like having a safety net you didn't realize was there.
It really is. This rule is, in essence, a pact with yourself. A pact that says, I will strive for consistency, but if I stumble, I will not fall completely. It's the difference between a fragile resolution that shatters at the first sign of trouble and a resilient habit that bends but doesn't break.
So, to recap for our listeners, the never miss twice rule is about accepting that missing a day is normal, but allowing it to become two consecutive misses is the real threat. When you miss a day, your absolute priority is to ensure it doesn't happen the next. This preserves momentum, bypasses motivation dips, and builds resilience, turning small stumbles into minor detours rather than catastrophic roadblocks.
Beautifully summarized, Alex. It's a simple principle, but applying it consistently is the key. It's about building a habit of getting back on track, which is arguably as important as the habit itself.
Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Today we're exploring how to anchor your habits to your identity.
Anchoring habits to identity. That sounds really interesting, Alex. Because I think for a lot of people, habits feel like something they do, rather than something that defines who they are.
Exactly. And that's the core of it. We've spent time discussing why motivation can be a fickle friend and why focusing on systems and habits is a much more reliable path. Now, imagine you want to start exercising regularly. Many people might think, I just need to be motivated enough to go to the gym. But what happens when motivation wanes? The habit often disappears with it.
Right. So, instead of motivation, you're suggesting we tap into something deeper.
Precisely. The idea is to shift your focus from the outcome, like losing weight or gaining muscle, to the type of person you want to become. If you want to be someone who exercises regularly, then showing up to the gym, even on days you don't feel like it, isn't a chore. It's an affirmation of that identity. You're not just exercising, you're being an exerciser.
So, it's like saying, I am a runner, rather than, I need to go for a run today.
You've hit the nail on the head, Lisa. It's a subtle but profound shift. When your habits are aligned with your desired identity, they feel less like an external obligation and more like an intrinsic expression of yourself. This makes them far more resilient. Think about it. If you identify as a reader, you don't need a grand motivational speech to pick up a book. It's just what you do.
That makes so much sense. So, how do we actually do this? How do we start anchoring our habits to our identity?
The first step is introspection. Clearly define the identity you want to adopt. What kind of person do you aspire to be? What qualities do they possess? For example, do you want to be a healthy person, a creative person, a knowledgeable person, a disciplined person? Be specific.
Okay, so let's say I want to be a knowledgeable person. What habit would anchor to that?
A fantastic habit to anchor to the identity of being knowledgeable is reading. Not just reading for pleasure, but reading with the intention of learning. So, instead of thinking, I should read a book, you think, as someone who is knowledgeable, I make time to read and learn. Every time you pick up a book, you're reinforcing that identity. It's a small vote for the person you want to be.
I love that. And it's not just reading, is it? It could be watching a documentary, listening to a podcast, or even taking an online course.
Absolutely. The key is that the action aligns with the identity. If you want to be a healthy person, the habit isn't just go to the gym. It's more like you, as a healthy person, choose to nourish your body with good food and move it regularly. Every healthy meal you choose, every walk you take, is a confirmation of that identity.
This feels so much more sustainable than just willpower. Because even on days when I don't feel like being healthy, seeing myself as a healthy person who practices health might lead me to make a better choice.
Exactly. You're not fighting against your own nature. You're acting in alignment with it. This is where habits become unbreakable. They're not just things you do, they're expressions of who you are. So, the habit of eating a balanced breakfast becomes a natural part of your morning routine because you identify as someone who fuels their body for success.
It's like a feedback loop, then. The action reinforces the identity, and the identity reinforces the action.
Precisely. And the more you perform the habit, the stronger that identity becomes. You start to truly believe, this is who I am. This makes it much harder to stop. When you encounter challenges or disruptions, which we'll talk about more later in the series, you're more likely to return to the habit because it's tied to your core sense of self.
And this ties back perfectly to our earlier discussions about systems versus motivation. If your habits are anchored to your identity, they become part of your system. They are the natural outputs of the person you are.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So let's recap this powerful idea. We've established that focusing on identities rather than just outcomes or fleeting motivation makes habits far more resilient. The process involves, first, clearly defining the identity you aspire to embody. Second, choosing habits that serve as concrete actions to express that identity. And third, understanding that each time you perform that habit, you are reinforcing that identity, creating a powerful, self-sustaining loop.
So, it's not just about doing the habit, it's about becoming the type of person who naturally does that habit.
That's the essence of it. When you decide you want to be a punctual person, you don't just aim to arrive on time. You begin to see yourself as punctual. And then, showing up on time becomes an automatic behavior, not a struggle. You're not trying to force yourself to be punctual. You're simply being punctual.
This is so much more empowering than just setting a goal. It feels like it changes your whole perspective.
It absolutely does. By aligning your habits with your desired identity, you're not just changing your behaviors, you're transforming who you are. This is a key element in building truly unbreakable habits that can withstand life's inevitable ups and downs. Imagine this. You want to be a more organized person. Instead of just trying to tidy up your desk once a week, you start to see yourself as an organized individual. This identity then naturally leads you to put things away as you use them, to plan your day proactively, and to maintain order without a constant effort.
So, the habit becomes a natural extension of the person you are becoming.
Exactly. And this identity-based approach makes it easier to navigate those moments when life gets chaotic. If you identify as someone who prioritizes their health, when an unexpected crisis hits, you're more likely to still find a way to squeeze in a short walk or make a nutritious meal, because that's what a healthy person does. It's not an extra burden. It's a core part of your self-definition.
It's like you're building the habit from the inside out, rather than trying to push it from the outside in.
That's a great way to put it. You're not trying to force a square peg into a round hole. You're shaping the hole to fit the peg, where the peg is your desired identity, and the hole is the space for your habits. This shift from focusing on external goals to internal identity is what truly makes habits resilient. They become less about effort and more about essence.
So, to summarize for our listeners, anchoring your habits to your identity means deciding who you want to be and then choosing actions that reflect that person. Every time you take that action, you reinforce that identity, making the habit feel natural and automatic. This is a powerful counterpoint to relying solely on motivation, and it makes your habits truly unbreakable.
Well said, Lisa. This concept is fundamental to building lasting change. We've seen how habits matter more than motivation, how to recover from slip-ups, and now, how to embed them into who you are. Next time, we'll explore how to design your very first resilient habit, making it easy to start and stick with.
Fascinating. Looking forward to that.
Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Unbreakable Habits. Last time, we explored how anchoring your habits to your identity can make them feel more deeply ingrained. Today, we're rolling up our sleeves and getting practical. We're going to walk through how to design your very first resilient habit.
That's right, Alex. We've talked a lot about the why habits matter, why consistency is key, and why identity is so powerful. Now, it's time for the how. How do you actually start building a habit that can withstand life's inevitable bumps and detours? The goal here is to create a habit that's so simple and so well designed. It's almost impossible to mess up, and if you do miss it, it's easy to get back on track.
Exactly. And the core principle we're applying here is radical simplicity. When you're designing your first resilient habit, think so simple it's almost embarrassing. This isn't about massive overhauls or heroic efforts. It's about creating a tiny, foundational habit that you can reliably perform. This simplicity is the bedrock of resilience. If a habit is too complex, the first minor disruption will derail you.
So, give us some examples, Alex. What does embarrassingly simple look like in practice?
Picture this. Instead of aiming to read more books, you design a habit of reading one page of a book before bed. Or instead of exercise more, the habit is do one push-up before getting out of bed. It sounds minuscule, almost absurd, but that's the point. The intention isn't to become a champion reader or a bodybuilder overnight. The intention is to establish the act of doing the habit, to create the neural pathway and the identity connection.
I love that. So, the goal isn't necessarily the immediate outcome, but the consistent action that builds towards the outcome. It's about showing up, even in the smallest way.
Precisely. And this ties directly into our never miss twice rule. When your habit is incredibly small, missing it once is a minor blip. You can easily do that one push-up or read that one page the very next day. It doesn't become this huge obstacle. But if your habit was to do 50 push-ups, missing it once might feel like a larger failure. And then it's easier to let 2 days slip by than 3, and suddenly the habit is gone.
That makes so much sense. So, for our listeners, the first step in designing a resilient habit is to choose something ridiculously small. What's next?
The next crucial step is to anchor it. Remember from our last episode how important identity is? You want to connect this tiny habit to the person you are or the person you aspire to be. So, if your habit is read one page, you might say to yourself, I am a reader. If it's do one push-up, you might think, I am someone who takes care of their body.
So, you're not just performing an action, you're embodying a characteristic with each tiny performance.
Exactly. And this is where it starts to feel less like a chore and more like an expression of who you are. You're not trying to read. You're a reader who reads one page. You're not trying to exercise. You're a healthy person who does one push-up. This subtle shift in language and self-perception is incredibly powerful for making the habit stick.
And how do we make sure we don't forget this tiny habit, especially when we're still building that identity connection?
This brings us to the importance of cues or triggers. A cue is something that prompts you to perform your habit. For maximum resilience, we want to link our tiny habit to something you already do automatically without thinking. This is the essence of habit stacking, which we'll dive into more deeply later, but the principle applies even to a single habit.
So, it's like piggybacking your new habit onto an existing, automatic behavior.
That's a great way to put it. Think about your morning routine. You probably brush your teeth, make coffee, or get dressed without much conscious thought. You can select one of these existing behaviors and attach your tiny new habit to it. For example, if your habit is drink a glass of water, you could attach it to making your morning coffee. The cue becomes, after I turn on the coffee maker, I will drink a glass of water.
Fantastic. So we have 1. Make the habit ridiculously small. 2. Anchor it to your identity. And 3. Attach it to an existing cue. What happens if, despite all this, we still miss a day?
This is where resilience truly shines, and it comes back to the never miss twice principle. When you miss your habit, and life happens, the key is to simply do it the next day. Don't beat yourself up Don't overthink it. Just get back on track. The smaller the habit, the easier this is. A missed single push-up is far less mentally taxing to recover from than a missed 45-minute workout.
It's about giving yourself grace, but also having a clear, simple plan for getting back on track immediately.
Exactly. And to reinforce this, you can also build in a tiny reward. This doesn't have to be grand. For our one page of a book, habit, the reward might simply be the satisfaction of knowing you're a reader and of closing the book, feeling accomplished. For the one push-up, habit, the reward might be a nod to yourself in the mirror, acknowledging that you've taken that small step. The reward reinforces the positive feeling associated with performing the habit.
So, to recap for our listeners, designing your first resilient habit involves three key pillars and a philosophy for dealing with slip-ups. First, make it ridiculously small, so simple you can't imagine failing. Second, anchor it to your identity. It's not about doing, it's about being. Third, attach it to a reliable cue, a natural part of your existing routine. And the philosophy for getting back on track is the never miss twice rule. If you miss a day, commit to doing it the very next day. No excuses. And finally, add a small, immediate reward to solidify the positive feeling.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. This process of designing a simple, anchored, and cued habit is the foundational step to building your habit architecture. It's about creating a system that works for you, not against you, and setting yourself up for sustainable success. When you can reliably perform a tiny habit, you build momentum and confidence, which makes it easier to expand or add to your habit system later on.
And this focus on simplicity and immediate recovery is what makes a habit truly resilient. It's not about perfection, but about persistence.
Precisely. You're not learning to avoid failure. You're learning to recover from it quickly and gracefully. This tiny habit becomes a beacon of consistency in your life, a reliable signal that you are capable of building and maintaining positive routines.
So, the challenge for our listeners is to pick one thing, one tiny habit, and implement these steps. Choose something so small it's almost humorous. Connect it to who you are, attach it to something you already do, and commit to that never miss twice approach.
And remember, this is the beginning of habit architecture. We're building the core components now, which will allow us to create more complex and interconnected habit systems down the line. This simple habit is your first brick in an unbreakable structure.
It's reassuring to know that we can start so small and still build something so powerful.
Absolutely. The journey of 1,000 miles, or in our case, 1,000 unbroken habits, begins with a single, tiny, resilient step.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome back. Last time, we explored how identity anchors habits. Today, we're diving into habit stacking.
Habit stacking. So, forming new habits can feel like a chore. How does it help?
Think of it this way. You already have habits you perform automatically. Brushing your teeth, making coffee, checking email. Habit stacking links a new habit to an existing habit you do without thinking. It creates a chain reaction for desired behaviors.
Instead of remembering a brand new action, you attach it to something you're already doing? It leverages existing brain pathways.
Exactly. Our brains love efficiency. They've already built the neural pathways for your existing habits. When you stack a new habit, you're essentially borrowing the strength of that established pathway. You're giving your brain a clear signal. When I do X, I will then do Y. It removes the decision fatigue of when to do the new habit.
That's brilliant. So, the process is about identifying a current habit and then deciding what new habit to stack onto it. But is there a right or wrong way to go about choosing which habit to stack?
There are definitely effective strategies. The most straightforward formula is after I current habit, I will new habit. This provides a clear trigger. For instance, after I finish my morning coffee, I will meditate for 5 minutes. Or after I brush my teeth, I will do 10 push-ups. The key is that the existing habit should be something you do reliably and at a consistent time.
And the new habit, does it need to be small? We've touched on starting small before.
Absolutely. For habit stacking to work best, the new habit should be very small, almost trivially easy to do. If your goal is to meditate, starting with just 1 minute is far more sustainable than aiming for 20. The goal here is to make the transition seamless. If the new habit is small, you're much more likely to do it, which reinforces the connection between the old and the new. We want to build that chain link strongly.
So the emphasis is on consistency through ease. Make the new habit so simple that you can't say no. It's about building the habit of stacking before you worry about the duration or intensity of the new habit itself.
Precisely. And this connects beautifully back to the identity anchoring we discussed. When you consistently perform your stacked habit, you start to see yourself as someone who meditates after coffee or someone who does a few push-ups after brushing their teeth. You're not just doing an action, you're embodying a new identity. The stack becomes evidence for your brain that you are, indeed, that kind of person.
It's like the habit stack becomes a tangible piece of evidence for your new self-identity. That's a powerful reinforcement loop. What if someone has multiple existing habits? Can they stack multiple new habits?
You can. This is where it gets really powerful, and we call it habit chains. Instead of just stacking one new habit, you can create a sequence. For example, after I finish my morning coffee, I will read one page of a book. After I read one page, I will write down one thing I'm grateful for. Each action triggers the next. A single existing habit can become the starting point for a whole cascade of positive behaviors.
A cascade. That sounds incredibly efficient. It's like setting up a domino effect for productivity and personal growth. What are some common pitfalls to avoid when setting up habit stacks?
A big one is making the new habit too demanding. If you're trying to go from 0 to an hour-long workout right after your morning coffee, you're setting yourself up for failure. The new habit needs to be so easy that it feels like part of the existing one, not a burden. Another pitfall is poor timing. If your current habit doesn't happen reliably, your new habit won't have a consistent trigger.
So, choose a very stable, reliable existing habit as your anchor. And ensure the new habit is extremely small to start. What about the environment? Does that play a role in successful habit stacking?
The environment is crucial. You want to make performing your new habit as easy as possible. If you want to read one page after coffee, have your book right next to your coffee mug. If you want to do push-ups, make sure there's enough space around you. Reducing any friction to performing the new habit is key, especially in the beginning. The environment should support the desired action.
So, it's not just about the mental link, but also about physically setting yourself up for success. It's about designing your surroundings to make the habit stack almost automatic.
Exactly. Think of it as building a personal system. Your existing habits are the strong beams, and habit stacking is how you attach new, lighter structures to those beams. By making the new habit tiny and predictable, and by ensuring your environment supports it, you significantly increase your chances of success. It transforms the intention to do something new into an automatic, consistent action.
It really does seem like a smart way to leverage what we already do. It takes the guesswork out of when and how, and makes a new behavior feel much more manageable. It's about using momentum to your advantage.
Precisely, Lisa. You're using the momentum of your existing life to build the life you want. And remember that identity piece? Every time you complete your stacked habit, you're not just checking a box. You're voting for the person you want to become.
So, to recap, habit stacking means linking a new, tiny habit to an existing, reliable habit using the formula after I's current habit, I will new habit. The success lies in making the new habit almost effortless at the start, supporting it with your environment, and recognizing each completion as a step toward your desired identity.
That's a perfect summary. It's a simple yet incredibly powerful technique for building resilience into your routines.
It makes so much sense. I can see how this would be much more effective than just trying to remember to do something new.
It truly is. Next time, we'll explore how to identify and focus on a powerful keystone habit that can have ripple effects throughout your life.
Thank you, Alex. That was incredibly insightful.
Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Unbreakable Habits. Last time, we explored the powerful technique of habit stacking. Now, we're diving into a concept that can truly supercharge your progress, the keystone habit.
That's right, Alex. We've been building this habit architecture, but a keystone habit is like finding the strongest support beam. It's a habit that makes it easier to build other good habits and break bad ones. Think of it as a positive domino effect.
Exactly. Focusing on just one or two powerful keystone habits can transform multiple areas of your life.
So, what makes a habit a keystone habit? How do we identify one?
Great question. Keystone habits improve life in small ways that create a sense of accomplishment, making you feel more in control. They create small wins, which build confidence and momentum, and they can lead to the spontaneous improvement of other habits.
So, it's about the positive feelings and subsequent actions it sparks. Can you give us some examples?
A classic example is regular exercise. When someone starts exercising consistently, they often naturally begin to eat healthier. They're in an active mindset and don't want to undo their workout. They might also sleep better, boosting energy and focus.
Oh, I've seen that. My friend started the gym, and suddenly she was packing salads and going to bed earlier. One decision made all the other healthy choices easier.
Precisely. Another common keystone habit is making your bed each morning. This small act of order at the start of the day sets a tone of accomplishment. This feeling can lead to better time management, more focus, and even tidier environments.
That's fascinating. So, it's about creating that initial sense of order and control. What else?
Mindfulness or meditation is another powerful one. Dedicating a few minutes each day to calming your mind can improve emotional regulation, reduce stress, and increase self-awareness. This calmness can spill over into how you interact with others, approach challenges, and manage impulses regarding less healthy habits.
I can see that. When you're calmer and more aware, you're less likely to react impulsively. It's like having a clear lens through which to view your day.
Exactly. And remember our discussion on the never miss twice rule? Keystone habits directly support that. If you miss a less important habit, it might feel like a failure. But with a keystone habit like daily exercise, it's less likely you'll miss it. And if you do, the momentum from your other positive habits will often pull you back and faster.
So, by strengthening your keystone habit, let's say exercise, you're building a more robust foundation that makes it harder to fall completely off track, even if you stumble on other things.
You've got it. It's like having a strong anchor. When storms come, that anchor holds. Another really potent keystone habit is tracking your progress. This could be tracking your spending, your workouts, or your mood.
Tracking your progress. So, the habit of tracking becomes the keystone habit?
In many cases, yes. When you consistently track something, you become more aware of your patterns. This awareness naturally leads to better decision making. If you're tracking spending, you notice where your money is going. If you're tracking workouts, you see how you're improving. Tracking creates a feedback loop.
It's like shining a spotlight on your actions. You can't ignore what the data shows you. And that awareness is the first step to change.
Precisely. So, how you find your keystone habit? It's unique to each person. Reflect on your own lives. What do you feel a sense of progress? What simple changes have led to bigger positive shifts in other areas?
Think about activities that make you feel more productive, healthier, or more in control. It could be journaling, spending time in nature, planning your week, or even just drinking a full glass of water first thing in the morning.
Some people find that establishing a consistent morning routine, including making your bed, a few minutes of mindfulness, and drinking water, acts as a powerful keystone. The whole routine sets a positive trajectory for the entire day.
So, to recap, a keystone habit is a single habit that sparks positive change across multiple areas of your life. They create momentum, improve feelings of control, and can lead to other beneficial habits. Examples include regular exercise, making your bed, practicing mindfulness, and tracking your progress.
And by focusing on cultivating one or two of these powerful habits, you can build a strong foundation for resilience, making it easier to stick with your goals and navigate life's inevitable disruptions, especially by reinforcing our never miss twice rule.
It's about working smarter, not just harder, by identifying the habits that give you the biggest bang for your buck in terms of personal growth.
Absolutely. So, consider what your potential keystone habit might be. Experiment with some of these ideas and see which one resonates most with you and seems to create the most positive ripple effect in your life.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome back. Last time we covered keystone habits and their ripple effect. Now let's understand your habit triggers and cues.
That sounds important, Alex. I've always wondered why some habits stick while others seem to disappear no matter how hard I try to maintain them.
Exactly. That's where habit triggers come in. Every habit follows a simple three-part loop: a cue, a routine, and a reward. The cue is the trigger that tells your brain to go into automatic mode and which habit to use. It's like a starting pistol for your habit.
So the cue is what initiates the habit? Like when I automatically reach for my phone when I hear it buzz.
Perfect example. The buzz is the cue that triggers your routine of checking your phone. The reward would be the information you get or the dopamine hit from seeing notifications. Understanding this loop is crucial because it gives you power over your habits instead of them having power over you.
That makes sense. But how do I actually identify my own triggers? They often feel so automatic.
Great question. The first step is awareness. Start by simply paying attention to when you perform your habits. Keep a habit journal for a week and note three things: what happened right before the habit, what you did, and how you felt afterward. This pattern recognition will help you spot your triggers.
I think I've been doing that wrong. I've been focusing on the routine itself and trying to change it, but maybe I should be looking at what comes first.
That's exactly right. Many people try to change the habit without addressing the trigger. It's like trying to fix a leaky faucet by wiping up the water instead of turning off the valve. The trigger is the valve.
So, what are some common types of triggers I should be looking for?
Triggers generally fall into five categories: location, time, emotional state, other people, and immediately preceding action. For example, a location trigger might be eating when you sit on the couch. A time trigger could be reaching for a snack at 3 p.m. every day. Emotional triggers include habits you perform when you're stressed or tired.
I definitely have that 3 p.m. snack habit. I never realized it was so time-based. It's like my body has an alarm clock for snacks.
Exactly. And that's a perfect example of a time-based trigger. Once you identify that trigger, you can start manipulating it. You might change your routine at that time, or even better, change what happens right before to create a different habit chain.
But what if my triggers aren't so obvious? Sometimes my habits seem to come out of nowhere.
Even those seemingly spontaneous habits have triggers. They might be more subtle, like a thought or a memory. The key is to be a detective of your own behavior. Ask yourself, what happened right before this habit? And keep asking that question until you find a root trigger.
That detective metaphor really helps. So, once I identify the trigger, what's next?
Once you've identified your triggers, you can manipulate them in several ways. First, you can eliminate the trigger if possible. If you always smoke when you're with certain friends, you might limit your time with those friends. Second, you can change your response to the trigger. When the trigger occurs, instead of your usual habit, you do something else.
That sounds straightforward, but I imagine it can be challenging to break established trigger habit connections.
It absolutely is challenging, which is why we're building resilient habits, not just quick fixes. The key is consistency. Every time you encounter the trigger, you need to consciously choose a different response. With repetition, you'll create a new habit loop that eventually becomes automatic.
So it's like rewiring my brain's pathways?
That's an excellent way to think about it. Neural pathways in your brain get strengthened through repetition. When you consistently respond to a trigger with a new routine, you're literally creating new neural connections. The more you do it, the stronger those connections become.
I'm starting to see how understanding triggers connects to what we discussed about keystone habits. If I can master my triggers, I can build a foundation for multiple habits.
You're making the connection perfectly. Keystone habits often have multiple triggers, and by mastering those triggers, you create momentum. For example, if your morning routine is a keystone habit, understanding what triggers you to start that routine, whether it's waking up, brushing your teeth, or having your first cup of coffee, helps you ensure that routine happens consistently.
What about when triggers are unavoidable? There are some situations I can't change in my life.
That's where flexibility comes in, which we'll explore more in future episodes. Even if you can't eliminate a trigger, you can still change your response to it. The trigger itself isn't the problem. It's your automatic response that needs adjusting. With practice, you can learn to pause between the trigger and your response and make a conscious choice.
That pause sounds crucial. It's like creating space between the impulse and the action.
Exactly. That moment of awareness is where your power lies. It's the difference between being on autopilot and being the conscious driver of your life. The more you practice pausing between trigger and response, the more control you gain over your habits.
This is making me think about my own habits differently. Instead of focusing on willpower, I should be focusing on understanding and manipulating my triggers.
You've grasped the essence of habit formation. Willpower is finite, but systems and triggers work for you automatically. By designing your environment and understanding your triggers, you're creating a system that supports your habits rather than fighting against them.
That's a much more sustainable approach. So, for anyone listening who wants to start implementing this, where should they begin?
Start small. Pick one habit you want to change or one new habit you want to build. Spend a week just observing and identifying its triggers. Don't try to change anything yet, just gather data. Awareness is the first and most important step. Once you know your triggers, you can start designing your response to them.
This makes habit formation feel much more manageable. It's not about massive change overnight, but about understanding the mechanics of our own behavior.
That's the mindset shift that leads to unbreakable habits. When you understand that habits are just responses to specific triggers, you stop blaming yourself for bad habits and start seeing yourself as the designer of your behavior. It's empowering.
I love that perspective shift. So, next time we'll be talking about flexible consistency.
That's right. Understanding your triggers sets the foundation for the next crucial element: how to maintain your habits even when life doesn't go according to plan. Because as we all know, life rarely goes exactly as planned. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we explored understanding your habit triggers and cues. Now, let's talk about flexible consistency, a crucial step toward unbreakable habits.
I think many of us approach habits with an either-or mindset. It's either perfect daily adherence, or it's a complete failure. That doesn't sound very sustainable for life.
You've hit on a key point, Lisa. Rigid consistency often leads to disappointment because life inevitably throws curveballs. The real goal is building habits strong enough to withstand disruptions without falling apart completely.
So, what exactly is flexible consistency, and how is it different from just being, well, inconsistent?
Flexible consistency isn't about making excuses or lowering the bar entirely. It's about having a thoughtful plan for when things don't go perfectly according to your original intention. Think of it like a bamboo stick. It bends in the wind, but doesn't break, unlike a brittle twig.
That's a great analogy. So, it's about adapting to circumstances while still retaining the core essence of the habit?
Precisely. Let's take daily meditation as an example. Rigid consistency might look like this. If I can't meditate for a full 20 minutes at exactly 7 a.m., I won't do it at all. Flexible consistency, on the other hand, would be I will meditate for at least 5 minutes sometime today, even if it's not at my usual time or for my usual duration.
That makes so much sense. I can recall skipping workouts because I felt I didn't have time for my full routine, when realistically, a quick 10-minute session would have been perfectly feasible and beneficial.
Exactly. Flexible consistency creates a system that works with real life, not against it. In fact, research consistently shows this adaptable approach leads to much better long-term habit adherence.
This sounds fantastic. How do we practically implement this? What are some strategies for developing this kind of flexible consistency?
Okay, strategy number one, establish a minimum viable habit. This is the absolute smallest version of your habit that you can still consider successful. For meditation, it might be those 5 minutes. For exercise, a 10-minute walk around the block. This ensures you never go a day completely without engaging with your habit.
That really takes the pressure off aiming for perfection and still maintains that vital element of consistency.
Absolutely. Strategy number two, create multiple time windows for your habit. Instead of strict, I must exercise at 7 a.m., try something like, I will exercise sometime between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m., or perhaps during my lunch break, or even in the evening if earlier times don't work out. This provides structure while building in adaptability.
That sounds infinitely more realistic. Life is often unpredictable, and having these backup time slots makes adaptation much smoother.
Exactly. Strategy number three, practice habit substitution. If your original plan for the habit falls through, have a readily available backup. Can't make it to the gym? Prepare a short home workout. Can't cook that healthy meal? Identify a healthier takeout option you can easily access.
So, it's about having a plan B and maybe even a plan C for when things don't unfold as initially expected.
Precisely. And strategy number four, embrace the miss but don't quit philosophy. Everyone is going to miss a day or two, or even more. The critical part is not letting a single missed day snowball into a week or a month of inconsistency. If you miss your habit on Monday, commit to ensuring Tuesday includes some form of it.
That's incredibly powerful. The ultimate goal isn't perfection, but the ability to quickly and consciously get back on track after any disruption.
Exactly. And that's the heart of flexible consistency. By building these adaptable habits, they become resilient enough to handle life's inevitable disruptions without completely breaking down.
How does this concept of flexible consistency connect back to our earlier discussions on habit stacking and keystone habits?
Flexible consistency builds beautifully upon those foundational concepts. Strong habit cues, which we discussed, make adaptation much easier. Keystone habits, remember, create positive momentum that naturally carries you through minor disruptions. And habit stacking becomes more flexible as you gain the ability to rearrange or substitute its components when needed.
So, it's like we're assembling all the previous pieces into a more robust and adaptable habit system?
Absolutely. Flexible consistency is what makes the habit system truly unbreakable. It acknowledges that life isn't perfect, and our habits shouldn't demand an unrealistic level of perfection from us either.
This feels like a total game changer. It effectively reduces that overwhelming pressure for perfection while still maintaining the essential consistency needed for genuine, lasting results.
Definitely. And there's a significant psychological benefit too. Consistently practicing flexible consistency fosters self-compassion and builds genuine resilience. We learn that setbacks are a normal part of the process, not catastrophic failures, which significantly boosts our chances of long-term success.
So, the key takeaway is building habits that have built-in flexibility, ensuring that life's unavoidable disruptions don't completely derail the entire intention.
Precisely. Think of your habits as a flexible rubber band rather than a rigid steel rod. They should have the ability to stretch and bend when needed, but reliably return to their original shape afterward.
That's such a fantastic mental image. Habits that bend without breaking. That's the goal.
Exactly. And that's what makes them truly unbreakable in the unpredictable real world.
This makes so much practical sense. Flexible consistency might just be the missing piece for so many people who struggle with consistently forming and maintaining habits.
It truly is, Lisa. It's not about a lack of discipline, but rather a smarter application of discipline, one that works harmoniously with human nature rather than fighting against it.
So, to recap the practical steps, we should establish a minimum viable habit, create multiple potential time windows, always have backup plans ready, and most importantly, never allow a single missed day to become a prolonged streak of missed days.
You've absolutely got it. Those are the four pillars of flexible consistency. By actively implementing them, you build habits that are genuinely resilient and can withstand almost anything life throws your way.
This has been incredibly helpful, Alex. I have a much clearer understanding now of how to make my habits adaptable without sacrificing their inherent power.
I'm really glad to hear that. Remember, the ultimate goal isn't unattainable perfection. It's steady, persistent progress. Flexible consistency empowers you to keep progressing even when life doesn't perfectly cooperate.
Next episode, navigating your first major disruption.
Welcome back. Last time, we discussed flexible consistency. Today, we're navigating your first major disruption.
That's a perfect follow-up, Alex. Because we all know that no matter how good our habits are, life inevitably throws curveballs. How do we handle those big disruptions when they come?
That's exactly what we're talking about today. And I want to start by sharing something personal. A few years ago, I got diagnosed with a sudden health condition that required surgery and months of recovery. All my carefully built habits, my morning routines, my workout schedule, my writing practice, they all went out the window overnight.
Wow, that sounds incredibly challenging. What was that like when you realized everything you'd built was suddenly disrupted?
It was actually terrifying at first. I had built this whole identity around being the guy who never misses. All of a sudden, I was missing everything, every single day. The guilt was overwhelming. I felt like I was failing at everything I cared about.
I can only imagine that feeling. It must have been so discouraging to see your hard work seemingly disappear.
But what I realized was that this was exactly the moment to apply the principles we've been talking about. Remember the never miss twice rule? That became my anchor. I couldn't control the disruption, but I could control my response. So even on my worst days, I made sure I didn't miss twice in a row.
That's such an important distinction. So it wasn't about preventing the disruption, but about how you respond after it happens.
Exactly. The first miss was unavoidable due to circumstances beyond my control. The second miss would have been a choice. So every day I asked myself, is this the second miss? And most days it wasn't. I might have only been able to do 5% of what I normally did, but that 5% was crucial.
That makes so much sense. But how do you actually implement that when you're feeling completely overwhelmed? What are some concrete strategies?
Great question. First, I went back to our Keystone habit concept. Instead of trying to rebuild everything at once, I identified my absolute Keystone habit, the one that would create the most momentum. For me, that was a 5-minute meditation each morning. That tiny habit became my foundation.
So you scaled everything down to almost nothing, but kept that one essential habit going?
Precisely. And then I used the concept of flexible consistency. Some days I could do a bit more, some days just that 5 minutes. I stopped aiming for perfection and started focusing on consistency. The mantra became something is better than nothing, and consistent something is better than occasional perfect.
That's such a powerful reframing. I think many people would either give up completely or try to force themselves back to 100% immediately when faced with a major disruption.
And that's exactly what leads to more disruption. By trying to do too much too soon, we risk burnout and another setback. The key is recalibration, adjusting your expectations to match your current reality while maintaining forward momentum.
How did you actually figure out what was realistic during recovery? It must have been hard to judge your own limits.
I use what I call the 20% rule. I aim to do just 20% of my normal habit capacity. If I normally meditated for 20 minutes, I did 4. If I normally wrote 1,000 words, I did 200. This created a sense of accomplishment without overwhelming myself.
That's brilliant because it's not so small that it feels meaningless, but it's definitely manageable.
Exactly. And here's another crucial strategy. I scheduled recovery time as a non-negotiable habit. Just like I would block time for writing or exercise, I blocked time for rest and recovery. This prevented me from feeling guilty about taking breaks that I actually needed.
So you treated recovery itself as a positive habit rather than something you had to feel bad about?
Absolutely. That mindset shift was transformative. Instead of thinking, I should be doing X, I thought, I'm doing exactly what I need to do to recover so I can return to my habits stronger than before.
That's such an important perspective. It reframes the disruption not as failure, but as part of the journey.
And that's the core of what we're talking about today. Major disruptions aren't the end of your habit journey. They're opportunities to practice resilience. The habits we build during recovery become the ones that sustain us through future challenges.
So it's not just about getting back to where you were, but about building an even stronger foundation?
Precisely. Each disruption you navigate successfully makes your habit system more robust. You learn what works when everything else fails. You discover your true minimum viable habit, the smallest possible version that still counts.
That's really powerful. For anyone listening who might be going through a disruption right now, what's the first thing you would recommend they do?
Start small. Identify your keystone habit, the one that will create the most momentum. Scale it down to something you can absolutely guarantee you won't miss twice. And be kind to yourself. Disruptions are part of life, not signs of personal failure.
That's such compassionate advice. It's amazing how these habit strategies actually help us navigate life's challenges.
They really do. And the beautiful thing is by practicing this now with smaller disruptions, you'll be prepared when the big ones come. That's what building resilient habits is all about, creating systems that can adapt and endure.
So, next time, we'll be talking about habit architecture and building a system for success.
Exactly. We'll dive into how to design your entire habit ecosystem to be resilient from the ground up. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Unbreakable Habits. Last time, we delve into navigating those inevitable disruptions that life throws our way and how to stay on track, even when things get chaotic. Now, we're shifting gears to a really exciting concept, building a complete system for your habits.
That's right, Alex. We've talked about individual habits, the importance of consistency, and how to bounce back. But today we're talking about how all these pieces fit together. It's not just about having good habits, it's about designing your life so that your habits work for you in a cohesive way. We're calling this habit architecture.
Habit architecture. I love that term. It paints a picture, doesn't it? Instead of just throwing bricks down randomly, we're talking about designing a structure, a solid, well-engineered foundation. So, Lisa, what does habit architecture really mean in practice?
Think of it like building a house, Alex. You don't just put up walls without considering the plumbing, the electrical, the foundation, or how the rooms flow into each other. Habit architecture is about creating a deliberate, interconnected system where your habits support and amplify each other, rather than being a collection of isolated actions. It's about making your entire routine a supportive ecosystem.
An ecosystem. I like that. So, instead of thinking, I need to exercise more, and then I need to read more, habit architecture suggests looking at how these might interact. Perhaps exercising first makes you feel more energized to read, or reading about a healthy topic inspires you to exercise.
Exactly. And it ties directly back to some of the concepts we've already discussed. Remember when we talked about Keystone habits?
Oh, absolutely. The habit that, when implemented, has a ripple effect, making other good behaviors easier, like exercise, which often leads to better eating and sleep.
Precisely. A keystone habit is like the main load-bearing wall in our house analogy. It's fundamental. In habit architecture, you identify and prioritize these keystone habits because they have the power to strengthen the entire structure. If you nail your keystone habit, it often makes maintaining your other habits significantly easier, almost automatic.
So, habit architecture involves identifying those big rock habits, the keystone ones, and building around them. What else forms the framework of this architectural design?
Another crucial element is habit stacking. Remember how we discussed stacking new habits onto existing ones?
Yes, the after I current habit, I will new habit. It's like adding connecting rooms or hallways to our house.
You got it. Habit stacking is how we strategically link habits together. In habit architecture, we're not just stacking 2 or 3 habits, we're looking at creating entire chains or even interconnected blocks of habits. Imagine a morning routine where you wake up, drink a glass of water, that's your anchor. Then, after the water, you do a 5-minute meditation, then, after meditation, you journal for 5 minutes. Each habit builds momentum for the next.
So, the water becomes the trigger for meditation, and meditation becomes the trigger for journaling. It creates a smooth, almost effortless transition from one positive behavior to the next. It reduces decision fatigue.
Precisely. And when you design these stacks thoughtfully, they become incredibly powerful. You're not relying on willpower to initiate each new activity. The completion of the previous habit is the cue for the next. It's like a well-oiled machine where one part naturally makes the next part move.
It's about designing the flow of your day, then. Not just individual actions, but the sequence and support system for those actions. What happens if one of these stacked habits gets disrupted? Does the whole system collapse?
That's where the resilience part of our series comes in. A well-architected habit system isn't brittle. We build in flexibility from the start. This brings us to the concept of the minimum viable habit.
Ah, a term borrowed from the tech world, I believe. What does that look like for habits?
It's the absolute smallest version of a habit that still provides value and maintains the streak. For example, if your habit is to read 30 minutes, but life gets crazy, your minimum viable habit might be to read just 1 page. The goal is not to skip the habit entirely, but to do the absolute smallest version of it. It keeps the system intact.
So, even if you can't do the full 30 minutes, reading that one page ensures you haven't broken the chain. It's like ensuring the lights stay on in one room of the house, even if the power is out in the rest of the neighborhood.
Exactly. And in our habit architecture, we consciously design these minimums. So, if your keystone habit is exercise and your goal is a 45-minute workout, your minimum viable habit might be 5 minutes of stretching. It keeps the identity of exerciser alive and the habit in your routine.
This is so insightful, Lisa. It's like we're not just looking at individual habits as standalone items, but as integral components of a larger, interconnected structure. This architecture ensures that when one part is weak, other parts can compensate or that the disruption is minimized.
And this system thinking extends to our environment as well. Remember episode 16? We discussed the significant role our surroundings play. Habit architecture means intentionally designing your environment to support your habit system.
So, if reading is part of my habit stack, I make sure there's a comfortable reading chair and good lighting readily available. If exercise is a keystone habit, my workout clothes might be laid out the night before.
You're building the house with the tools and materials you need right at hand. You minimize the friction to enter your desired habits and increase the friction for undesired ones. It's the proactive, design-oriented approach that makes habits truly unbreakable.
It's about creating a self-reinforcing cycle. The keystone habits make the stacked habits easier, the minimum viable habits ensure consistency, and the environment makes it all flow smoothly. It's a holistic approach to building resilience.
And it's important to remember, as we've said throughout this series, that this architecture isn't rigid. It needs to evolve. Our lives change, our priorities shift, and our habit systems should adapt with us. This is where reflection comes in, which we'll touch on later. But for now, the foundational idea is building a thoughtful, interconnected system for your habits.
So, to recap, habit architecture is about viewing your habits not as separate tasks, but as an interconnected system. This system is built upon identifying your keystone habits, those that have a powerful ripple effect, strategically linking behaviors using habit stacking to create smooth transitions and momentum, designing minimum viable habits to ensure consistency even during disruptions, and crucially, shaping your environment to support and enable your habit structure.
It's about creating an intentional blueprint for your daily life that makes your desired behaviors the path of least resistance. It's a more sophisticated, more robust way to build lasting routines. Instead of building a shack, you're constructing a sturdy, well-designed building that can withstand the elements.
Fantastic overview, Lisa. This concept of habit architecture really elevates our approach from just individual habit formation to building a truly resilient way of living. We're moving from just doing things to designing a life where doing those things is natural and supported.
It sets the stage for mastering the minimum viable habit, which is exactly what we'll dive into next time.
Sound great? Next episode, mastering the minimum viable habit. Welcome back, everyone, to Unbreakable Habits. Today, we're tackling a concept that can feel like a lifesaver when things get hectic. Mastering the minimum viable habit.
The minimum viable habit. That sounds like exactly what I need when my calendar explodes. Alex, what exactly is it?
Think of it as the absolute smallest version of a habit that still counts. It's the smallest action you can take that still fulfills the core purpose of that habit. The goal here is continuity. It's about ensuring that even when life throws curveballs, you don't completely drop the ball on your habits.
So, instead of aiming for a full hour at the gym, it might be just doing 5 push-ups?
Precisely. Or maybe your habit is reading 20 pages of a book. Your minimum viable habit might be just reading one paragraph. The key is that it's achievable, it keeps the habit alive, and it preserves the identity you're building around that habit. Remember, we talked about anchoring habits to your identity. This helps maintain that identity.
Right, so if I consider myself a reader, even reading one paragraph reinforces that I am a reader. That makes sense. It prevents that feeling of failure when you can't do the full routine.
Exactly. When we aim too high, especially during challenging times, we set ourselves up for disappointment. This can lead to what we call all or nothing thinking. You miss one workout, and suddenly you feel like a failure, so you give up entirely. The minimum viable habit is the antidote to that. It's about ensuring you keep the habit going, even in a small way.
That feels so much more sustainable. It's like when you're trying to learn a new language. You might aim to study for an hour a day, but if you only have 10 minutes, your minimum viable action is to learn just 5 new words. It's still progress.
That's a perfect analogy, Lisa, and it's about recognizing that progress isn't always linear. Life happens. You might travel, get sick, have a demanding work project, or face unexpected personal challenges. During these times, your full-blown habit might be impossible. That's where the minimum viable habit shines. It's your backup plan. It's the safety net that keeps you from falling completely off the wagon.
So, how do we actually figure out what our minimum viable habit is? Do we just arbitrarily decide on a smaller number?
It's a little more structured than that. First, you need to clearly define the core purpose of your habit. What is the underlying benefit you're seeking? For example, if your habit is meditate for 20 minutes, the core purpose is to reduce stress and improve focus,
Okay, so the purpose is stress reduction.
right? Now, what's the absolute smallest action you can take that still contributes to stress reduction and contributes to the feeling of having done your meditation for the day? Perhaps it's just closing your eyes and taking 3 deep breaths. It's short, it's simple, but it's still a mental pause that can help shift your state.
3 deep breaths. That's tiny, but I can see how it could still feel like you've honored the habit.
And that's the magic. It's about achieving a sense of completion, however small. We're not aiming for maximal results in this scenario. We're aiming for consistent engagement. We want to keep the habit loop intact. Remember, habits are built on consistency, and a tiny bit of consistency is infinitely better than none.
This is so crucial when you think about environments that are disruptive, like traveling. We'll actually cover that more in episode 13. But for now, what are some common pitfalls to avoid when defining a minimum viable habit?
A big one is making it too small. It needs to be small enough to be achievable in difficult circumstances, but still significant enough to recognize as a version of the habit. If your habit is write a 1,000-word blog post, your minimum viable habit can't just be think about writing. It needs to be an actual, tangible action, even if it's just writing 50 words. The key is that it still engages you in the core activity.
So it still has to feel like you're doing the thing. It can't just be a thought about doing the thing.
Exactly. Another pitfall is not being flexible enough in your definition. Life changes, and what was a minimum viable habit for you last year might be too much now, or vice versa. It's a tool that you deploy when needed. You don't necessarily stick to your minimum viable habit all the time. It's your emergency raft, not your daily cruise ship.
That's a great image. It's what you use when the waves get rough. So, let's recap this idea for our listeners. We've talked about the minimum viable habit as the smallest possible version of a habit that still provides value and honors the core purpose. It's designed to prevent overwhelm and ensure continuity, especially during busy periods, travel, or any disruptive life event.
And we reinforce that its primary goal is to keep the habit alive and preserve your identity. By taking even a small action, you're telling yourself you're still the person who does this habit. You avoid the all or nothing mindset and keep the momentum going.
To find your minimum viable habit, you first identify the core purpose of your habit and then determine the smallest, achievable action that still contributes to that purpose and provides a sense of completion.
And remember to avoid making it so small that it loses its essence, and be prepared to adjust it as your circumstances change. The minimum viable habit isn't about being lazy, it's about being resilient. It's about building a system that can withstand the inevitable storms of life. It's another powerful tool in your arsenal for building those unbreakable habits.
It really feels like a mental shift, doesn't it? Instead of beating yourself up for not doing the full habit, you celebrate showing up at all, even in a small way. I can already feel the stress melting away just thinking about it.
That's the power of smart habit design. It's not about brute force, it's about intelligent application. We're building systems that work with our lives, not against them.
Fantastic. So, we've built our habit architecture. We've found our minimum viable habit. What's next?
Next time, we're going to explore how to use accountability partners effectively and how to avoid the common mistakes that make them counterproductive.
Ooh, accountability partners. I think a lot of people struggle with that. I'm looking forward to hearing your take.
Me too. So join us next time for episode 13, The Power of Accountability Partners, the Right Way.
Looking forward to it.
And that brings us to the end of episode 12. We've learned how to shrink our habits to their essential core, ensuring we keep moving forward no matter what. This is your tool for not missing, even when life gets tough.
It's all about that small, consistent win.
Exactly. And that's the essence of an unbreakable habit. Next episode, The Power of Accountability Partners, the Right Way. Welcome back to Unbreakable Habits.
Right, Alex? Because let's be honest, our carefully constructed routines often seem to fly out the window when we're on vacation, dealing with a family emergency, or just navigating a particularly chaotic week. It's easy to think, well, I can't possibly meditate in this airport terminal, or my usual workout routine is impossible right now.
Exactly, Lisa. And that's precisely why this episode is so crucial. We're going to equip you with strategies to keep those habits on the go. It's about building a system that's not just robust, but also adaptable. Remember how we discussed flexible consistency? This is where that really shines.
So, it's not about having a perfect, uninterrupted run of good habit days, but about having a plan for when the disruptions happen?
Precisely. Think of it like this. Your usual habit is like driving your familiar route to work. Smooth, predictable. But traveling or dealing with disruptions is like having to take a detour. You still need to reach your destination. You just need to navigate a different path. The key is to have a map for that detour.
I like that analogy. So, what's the first step in creating this habit detour map?
It all comes back to our principle of the minimum viable habit, but with a slight twist. We need to identify your portable minimum viable habits. These are the absolute smallest versions of your habits that you can do anywhere, anytime, with minimal resources.
Portable minimum viable habits. Can you give us some examples?
Absolutely. For a meditation habit, your portable minimum viable habit might be just 3 conscious breaths. Not a full 10 minutes, but 3 deep, intentional breaths. Or for a journaling habit, it could be jotting down one single word that describes your current feeling.
So, it's about scaling down even further than the minimum viable habit we discussed before. It's the rock bottom version.
It is. And why is this so effective? Because it makes the barrier to entry so incredibly low. When you're tired, stressed, or in an unfamiliar hotel room, the thought of a 5-minute meditation might feel overwhelming. But 3 breaths? That's manageable. It keeps the habit alive and maintains the neural pathway.
That makes so much sense. You're not losing the habit, you're just practicing its most basic form. And that act of still doing something, however small, reinforces the identity of yourself as someone who meditates or journals.
Exactly. You're reinforcing your identity. You're not an ex-meditator because you missed a week of 30-minute sessions. You're still a meditator because you're still taking those 3 breaths.
Okay, so portable minimum viable habits are key. What else can we do when we're on the go?
Another powerful strategy is to leverage your environment. We've talked about habit architecture, about designing your surroundings to support your habits. This applies even when those surroundings are temporary.
How can we do that when we're in a hotel room or a busy airport?
Think about portable triggers. For instance, if your habit is to drink a glass of water first thing in the morning and you're traveling, pack a small, collapsible water bottle. Keep it on your bedside table in the hotel. That visual cue, that water bottle being right there, becomes your trigger.
Ah, so you're bringing a piece of your home environment with you.
You're bringing elements of your habit architecture with you. If your habit is morning exercise and you always lay out your workout clothes the night before, do that in your hotel room. It takes 2 minutes, but it significantly reduces the friction when you wake up. Similarly, if you want to go for a walk, put your walking shoes by the door of your hotel room instead of in the closet.
I can see how making those cues visible and accessible would make a huge difference. It's like you're setting up your future self for success.
You absolutely are. And this leads to another important concept, pre-planning for disruption. This is about anticipating that your environment will change and actively thinking about how you'll adapt.
So, before you even leave, you're already thinking about the detours.
Precisely. Before a trip, I'll ask myself, what are the likely disruptions? What is the absolute smallest version of my key habits I can commit to, and what portable triggers can I set up? For example, if I know I'll be on a long flight, I might commit to just reading one page of a book instead of my usual chapter, and I'll make sure that book is easily accessible in my carry-on.
That proactive thinking is so valuable. It shifts your mindset from feeling like a victim of circumstances to being an active architect of your habits, no matter the location.
And that mindset shift is critical for developing unbreakable habits. It's not about rigidity, it's about resilience. It's about understanding that life happens and your habits are there to serve you, not to become another source of stress.
So, to recap for our listeners, when faced with travel or disruptive environments, focus on identifying your portable minimum viable habits. These are the absolute smallest, most achievable versions of your routines.
That's right. And then adapt your environment by bringing portable triggers with you. Lay out your workout clothes, keep your water bottle visible, whatever supports your habit. Make those cues accessible.
And finally, embrace proactive planning. Anticipate disruptions and decide beforehand what the scaled down version of your habit will be and how you'll trigger it. This pre planning minimizes the decision fatigue when you're actually in the disruptive situation.
Exactly. These strategies are all about ensuring that even when your external circumstances change, your internal commitment to self-improvement remains steady. You're building a habit system that can travel with you, that can withstand the unexpected.
It's empowering to realize that we don't have to put our self care and productivity on hold just because we're not in our usual routines. We can adapt and keep moving forward.
And that's the essence of becoming unbreakable. It's not about never falling. It's about always getting back up, no matter where you are or what's happening around you. These portable habits are your anchors in the storm.
Fantastic insights, Alex. So, the idea is to be flexible with the form of the habit, but unwavering in the commitment to the habit itself.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Lisa. Keep those habits alive, even when you're on the move. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we covered habits on the go. Now, let's discuss the power of accountability partners.
I'm excited about this one. I've had accountability partners before, but I'm not sure if I've been doing it right. What makes an accountability partner actually effective?
That's exactly what we're going to look at today. Most people think accountability is just someone asking, did you do your habit? But effective accountability is so much more. It's about having someone who understands the principles of habit formation, especially the never miss twice rule we discussed earlier.
Right, that rule. If you miss a day, don't miss two in a row. How does that connect to accountability?
Great question. An accountability partner who doesn't understand this principle might just say, you missed yesterday, so you're off track. But a truly effective partner would recognize that one miss is normal. They'd help you get back on track for the next day, rather than letting you spiral.
That makes sense. So the quality of the accountability partner matters more than just having one?
Absolutely. I've seen people fail with accountability partners time and again, and it's usually because they either didn't choose the right person or didn't set up the system properly. Think of it like this. Would you ask someone who doesn't understand nutrition to help you stick to a diet? Probably not. The same goes for habits.
So, what makes someone the right accountability partner? Just someone who's also trying to build habits?
Not quite. The ideal accountability partner needs three key qualities. First, they should understand habit principles. They get that habits are built through repetition, not motivation. Second, they need to be genuinely invested in your success, not just going through the motions. And third, they should be someone you can be honest with, even when things go wrong.
That last point is tricky, being honest about failures. I think a lot of people avoid accountability because they're afraid of admitting they slipped up.
Exactly. And that's why so many accountability partnerships fail. They become superficial check ins where people just say, yes, I did it, whether they did or not. Real accountability requires vulnerability.
So, instead of just a yes or no, what kind of information should we be sharing?
You want to share context. For example, if your habit is to go for a run every morning, instead of just saying, I ran, you might say, I ran this morning, but I felt really tired, so I shortened it to 20 minutes instead of my usual 40. This provides valuable insight.
So it's not just about checking a box, but about learning and adapting.
Precisely. Your accountability partner can then offer support like, it's great you ran even though you were tired, or suggest strategies for when you're feeling low energy. They can also help you remember the never miss twice rule. If you say, I didn't run yesterday because I was exhausted, they can remind you, okay, but today is a new day. Let's get that run in.
That sounds much more constructive than someone just saying, you failed.
It is. And this leads to the second crucial element of effective accountability, defining the terms of your partnership.
The terms? Like, what we'll check in about and how often.
Exactly. You need to agree on what information you'll share, how frequently you'll connect, daily, weekly, and how you'll communicate. Will be texts, calls, or in-person check-ins. Setting these expectations upfront prevents misunderstandings and ensures both people are on the same page.
I can see how that would be important. If one person expects a daily email and the other only plans to send a weekly summary, that's a recipe for frustration.
Absolutely. And here's a powerful strategy. Instead of just checking in on the habit itself, focus on the system that supports the habit.
The system? Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say your habit is to meditate for 10 minutes daily. The system includes things like having a comfortable cushion, setting aside that specific time, and preparing your mind. So, your accountability check-in could be about how well your system worked. Did you have a good time to meditate? Was your cushion comfortable? Did anything interrupt you?
That's interesting. So you're not just reporting on the outcome, but on the process that leads to that outcome.
You got it. This shifts the focus from did I succeed or fail to how can I improve my system to make success more likely? It's proactive, not just reactive. It helps identify bottlenecks in your habit building machine.
And by focusing on the system, you're less likely to get discouraged by a missed day because you can still discuss how your system is functioning.
Precisely. You're building a resilient structure. Now, let's talk about the type of accountability. There are a few common models: peer accountability, mentor accountability, and group accountability.
Peer accountability sounds like what we've been discussing, you and a friend holding each other accountable.
That's right. It's great for common goals and mutual support. Mentor accountability is when someone more experienced guides you. They might offer advice based on their own habit building journey. This can be very powerful if you have a mentor who truly understands your goals.
And group accountability? That sounds like a lot of people.
It can be, think of a habit building group, a fitness class, or even a support group. The accountability comes from the shared commitment and the presence of others working towards similar goals. It can create a strong sense of camaraderie and motivation. However, in a large group, individual attention might be limited.
So, the best type depends on your personality and your specific habits?
Exactly. Some people thrive with the energy of a group, while others prefer the intimacy of a one-on-one partnership. The key is to find the fit that works for you. And remember, the goal of accountability is not to create dependence, but to build independence.
That's a really important distinction. We want to build habits that are unbreakable even when our partner isn't around.
Think of your accountability partner as a temporary scaffolding. They help you erect the structure of your habit. Once the habit is strong and self-supporting, you might not need the scaffolding as much. The goal is for you to become your own best accountability partner, guided by the principles we've discussed.
So, choose wisely, set clear terms, focus on the system, and remember the ultimate aim is self-reliance.
You've got it. Effective accountability isn't about being told what to do. It's about having a trusted ally who helps you see the path forward and encourages you to keep walking it, even when the terrain gets tough.
This has been so helpful, Alex. I feel much clearer on how to approach accountability partnerships now.
And that's our goal, to equip you with the knowledge to build truly unbreakable habits. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we covered the power of accountability partners. Now let's tackle designing for failure.
That sounds counterintuitive, Alex. Planning for failure?
Not at all, Lisa. Think of building a bridge. Engineers don't just plan for perfect conditions. They build in safety margins and redundancy to handle stress. That's how we should approach our habits.
So, instead of striving for perfection, we build in resilience from the start. How do we do that?
First, let's shift our mindset. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it. Every habit system faces disruptions. The key is how it responds. Remember the never miss twice rule? That's a form of designing for failure.
Right. Even if something goes wrong, we have a plan to get back on track. What specific elements should we build in?
We need to anticipate common disruptions. What usually derails people? Travel, illness, work demands, emergencies. List these for your habits. For example, if you have a morning meditation habit, what happens when you're exhausted or lack a quiet space?
I've definitely been there. What's a recovery strategy for that?
You could plan a minimum viable meditation, just 2 minutes of focused breathing anywhere, or switch to a walking meditation. The goal is to have alternatives ready so one disruption doesn't derail you. This builds on the minimum viable habit concept from episode 12.
So we're creating backup plans. What about triggers? How do they help with resilience?
Triggers are central. When a habit is new, triggers might disappear during disruptions. Identify multiple potential triggers for each habit. If your workout routine is triggered by leaving work, what happens when you work from home? Having alternative triggers, like changing into workout clothes after breakfast, adds redundancy.
That's brilliant. Multiple entry points for the habit. What about unexpected problems?
That's where we need a recovery protocol. This is a simple, universal response to any missed habit. It has 3 steps. Acknowledge without judgment. Quickly identify what went wrong, and take one small step toward restarting. For instance, if you miss your evening journaling, you might say, I missed it because I got home late. I'll write 3 sentences now to restart.
I love that. It's practical and non-judgmental. It ties into reframing failure as feedback from episode 18. It's information, not a breakdown.
Exactly. This approach builds a growth mindset into your system. It learns and adapts like a thermostat that turns up the heat when it gets cold, not just gives up.
That's a great analogy. So, what's the first step today for building resilience?
Pick one habit and brainstorm potential disruptions. Ask yourself, what could realistically go wrong? List everything. Then, for each problem, design a simple alternative. Create a resilience checklist for your habit.
That sounds very actionable and would reduce anxiety. It's like an emergency kit for your habits.
Precisely. This isn't about being negative. It's about being realistic. By designing for failure, we increase long-term success. Resilient systems recover quickly.
This connects to habit architecture in episode 11. A resilient system is a network, not just a single habit.
Excellent point. And that's why building resilience is so powerful. It shifts from rigid perfection to flexible consistency, as we discussed in episode 9.
So, to recap today, we've learned to anticipate problems, have multiple triggers and alternatives, create recovery protocols, and maintain a growth mindset. This builds habit systems that handle life's inevitable disruptions.
Perfect summary. Next time, we'll discuss the crucial role of environment in habit formation and maintenance. Until then, remember that unbreakable habits know how to recover.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time on Unbreakable Habits.
Welcome back. Last time we covered designing for failure and building resilience into your system. Now let's explore the powerful role that environment plays in habit formation and maintenance. Did you know that your surroundings are one of the most underrated factors in building unbreakable habits? Today we're diving deep into how both your physical and digital environments can either support or sabotage your routines. This is crucial because even the most motivated person can struggle when their environment works against them.
That's so true. I've definitely noticed how much easier it is to stick with certain habits when everything around me supports them. But I never really thought about it systematically. How exactly do our environments impact our habits?
Let's start with the obvious, your physical environment. Think about your morning routine. If you want to exercise first thing, having your workout clothes laid out the night before makes all the difference. But if you have to search for them in a messy closet, that extra step can derail your plan completely. This is what we call friction, the effort required to start a habit. More friction equals less likely you'll follow through.
Oh, wow. That's such a simple concept, but so powerful. So basically, we need to reduce friction for good habits and increase it for bad ones?
Exactly. That's one of the most effective strategies in habit architecture. For example, if you want to drink more water, place a water bottle in every room you frequent, your desk, your nightstand, your car. The water becomes visible and accessible. But if you want to eat less junk food, don't keep it in the house at all. Make it inconvenient to get to.
I love that. It reminds me of when I wanted to read more. I started keeping a book on my coffee table and another by my bed. Suddenly, I was reading more without even trying. It was just always there when I had a spare moment.
Perfect example. Your environment essentially does the work for you by constantly reminding you of your intentions. This connects to something called implementation intentions, the idea that we're more likely to follow through when we plan specific scenarios. By designing your environment, you're essentially pre-deciding when and where habits will happen.
So, what about digital environments? Our phones and computers are such a big part of our lives now. How do we optimize those for habit formation?
Great question. Digital environments actually present both opportunities and challenges. For good habits, you can set up your phone to support you. Want to meditate daily? Put your meditation app on your home screen. Want to learn a new language? Make your learning app the first thing you see when you unlock your phone.
But what about the constant notifications and distractions? Those seem to work against almost any productive habit I try to build.
You're absolutely right. Digital environments are designed to capture attention, which is why we need to be intentional about setting boundaries. This includes turning off non-essential notifications, using app blockers during focused work times, and organizing your digital spaces deliberately. Remember when we discussed the minimum viable habit concept? Well, a digital environment should require minimal effort to access your good habits, while making bad habits require more steps to reach.
That makes so much sense. It's like creating barriers between you and distractions while building highways to your desired behaviors.
Exactly. And here's something fascinating. Research shows that environmental cues often trigger habits even before we consciously decide to act. This is why changing your environment can be more effective than sheer willpower. Willpower is finite, but environmental design works automatically.
So, if someone is struggling with a particular habit, rather than just trying harder, they should look at their surroundings first.
Precisely. Start by auditing your spaces. Identify what cues might be triggering unwanted habits and what's missing for the habits you want to build. Ask yourself, what could I rearrange, remove, or add to make good habits easier and bad habit harder? This is where the concept of nudge theory comes in. Small environmental changes that guide behavior in positive directions.
I'm thinking about my kitchen. I've been trying to eat healthier, but I always reach for the snacks that are easiest to grab. Maybe if I put the fruit in clear containers at eye level and hide the processed foods, I'd naturally make better choices.
That's perfect. You're designing your environment to support your goals without relying on constant willpower. And here's the beautiful part. Once a habit is established, your environment continues to reinforce it automatically. The cue, the routine, and the reward become self-sustaining.
So, environment isn't just about starting habits, but maintaining them too?
Absolutely. Maintenance is where environment really shines. As we discussed earlier, life happens, you get busy, stressed, or tired. That's when environmental support systems become crucial. When motivation fades, your well-designed environment keeps the habit alive by making it the path of least resistance.
This connects back to our episode on resilience. By building environmental scaffolding, we're essentially creating systems that can withstand disruptions.
Excellent connection. That's exactly right. Your environment acts as a safety net for your habits. It's why we talk about habit architecture, designing spaces that support your desired behaviors automatically. The most resilient habit systems don't just rely on your daily decisions. They embed your routines into the very structure of your life.
I think the key takeaway here is that habits aren't just about what you do, but where and when you do them. Your environment essentially does the remembering for you.
Well said. Environment becomes your silent partner in habit formation. It works in the background, making good habits easier and bad habits harder over time. So when you're building your unbreakable habits, don't just focus on the behavior itself. Design the ecosystem that will support it for the long haul.
This has completely changed how I think about habit building. I'm already mentally rearranging my office and organizing my digital spaces as we speak.
That's the spirit. Remember, small environmental changes can lead to significant behavioral shifts. Start with one area today, whether it's your workspace, kitchen, or phone layout, and see how it impacts your habits. You might be surprised at how much easier consistent behavior becomes when your environment supports you.
This was such an eye-opening conversation. I can't wait to put these principles into practice.
Me too. In next episode, we'll dive into advanced habit stacking, creating cascading habits that build on each other for exponential results. Until then, start designing your environment to support your most important habits. Next episode, advanced habit stacking, creating cascading habits. Welcome back to Unbreakable Habits. Last time, we really dug into the magic of habit stacking as a foundation. We learned how to link a new habit to an existing one, creating a simple cue and routine.
And Alex, it was so powerful to see how just one stacked habit can start to build momentum. We talked about how doing something like, say, flossing your teeth immediately after brushing them can make that new flossing habit stick.
Exactly, Lisa. But what if you want to build even more momentum? What if you want to create a whole chain reaction where one habit effortlessly leads to the next and then the next? That's where advanced habit stacking comes in.
Ooh, cascading habits.
I like the sound of that.
So instead of just linking one new habit to an old one, we're talking about a whole sequence?
Precisely. Think of it less like a single domino falling and more like a whole Rube Goldberg machine of positive actions. You set up a sequence, and each step naturally triggers the next, building momentum and making it easier to complete the entire chain.
That's a great analogy, Alex. So, how do we actually design these cascading habits? Are there specific principles to follow?
There are, and the core idea is to make the transition between each habit as seamless and obvious as possible. We're building on the foundation of habit stacking. So remember that core principle. Your existing habit is your cue for the next habit.
Right.
So, if my existing habit is brushing my teeth, that's the cue for the next thing, which might be flossing. But in advanced stacking, the flossing habit itself becomes the cue for something else?
You've got it. Let's say you want to build a morning routine that incorporates exercise, meditation, and journaling. You could stack them like this. After you brush your teeth, that's your initial cue, right?
Yes.
Then, immediately after brushing your teeth, you do your short 5-minute workout. The completion of that 5-minute workout becomes the cue for your next habit, sitting down for a 5-minute meditation.
Okay, I'm picturing it. So, the workout is done, and as soon as I stand up from my post-workout stretch, that's the signal to transition to meditating.
Exactly. And then, the completion of your 5-minute meditation session becomes the cue for your final habit in this chain, writing in your journal for 5 minutes.
Wow.
So, the sequence is brush teeth dash 5-minute workout dash 5-minute meditation dash 5-minute journaling. And each action seamlessly leads into the next. That makes it feel much more achievable than trying to do all three new habits independently.
Absolutely. The key here is the transition. Make it immediate. As soon as one habit is done, the next one begins. There's no large gap for your brain to decide whether to continue or to get distracted. You're creating a flow.
What if the habits aren't physically connected in that way? For example, if I want to read for 15 minutes after I finish my evening walk, the walk might end in the garage, but I want to read in the living room.
That's a great question, and it highlights the importance of making the transition as frictionless as possible, even if the physical locations are different. In that case, your evening walk ending is the cue. The instant that walk is over, your next intended action is to go to the living room and pick up your book.
So, even a slight mental shift or a short walk to another room can bridge the gap. It's about minimizing the mental energy required to switch gears.
Precisely. Think about it like a series of stepping stones across a pond. Each stone is a habit, and you want them to be close enough together that you can easily leap from one to the next without a moment's hesitation or fear of falling in.
That makes sense. And you mentioned Rube Goldberg machines earlier. That sounds like you can get quite creative with this.
You can, and that's where the advanced part comes in. You can build longer chains, and you can also make these chains more integrated into your day. For example, instead of just one morning chain, you might have a getting ready for work chain, an unwinding after work chain, and an evening wind down chain.
So, you could have a whole system of interconnected habits that support each other throughout the day.
Exactly. Let's break down the core components of designing these cascading habits. First, identification. You need to identify the habits you want to link. Think about your goals. Do you want to be healthier, more productive, more mindful?
And then you'd pick habits that align with those goals.
Right. Second, order. Arrange your chosen habits in a logical and natural sequence. You want to build momentum, so consider which habit would logically flow from and lead into another. You wouldn't want to try and meditate before you've had your morning coffee, if that's your ritual.
That's a good point. Order really matters.
Third, cues. This is crucial for advanced stacking. Each habit in the chain needs a clearly defined cue to trigger it. Remember, the completion of the previous habit is the cue for the next. but you also need an initial cue to start the whole chain. This could be waking up, finishing a meal, or arriving home.
So, it's a chain reaction. One cue triggers habit one, habit one's completion triggers habit two, habit two's completion triggers habit three, and so on.
Exactly. And we need to talk about the importance of making each habit in the chain small and manageable. This is where the concept of the minimum viable habit becomes even more critical.
Ah, yes.
So, if our chain is workout, meditation, journaling, we might start each of those as just 1 minute or 5 minutes, making the whole chain very short and easy to complete.
Precisely. If your chain is already complex, try to do a full 30-minute workout, followed by a 15-minute meditation, and then a 10-minute journaling session might feel overwhelming. Start small. Make each link in the chain lightweight. The power comes from the consistency of the chain, not the intensity of each individual habit, especially when you're starting.
So, the goal is to make the entire cascade feel effortless, not to conquer a marathon of habits right away.
Exactly. And as you get more comfortable, you can gradually lengthen each habit in the chain or even add more habits to it. The foundation is key.
It's like building a bridge stone by stone. You make sure each stone is secure and perfectly placed before even thinking about the next one.
Love that image, Lisa. And it's important to remember that sometimes a habit in the chain might falter. If you miss one stone, the bridge isn't completely broken. That's where understanding your triggers and having a plan for when things go slightly off course becomes vital.
So, even with advanced stacking, we need that resilience we've talked about. We can't expect perfection.
Absolutely. If you miss one habit in your cascade, don't let it derail the entire sequence. Just pick up with the next habit in line, or even just recommit to the beginning of the chain the next day. The idea is that the system of cascading habits will, over time, make it more likely for you to complete the entire sequence.
It's about creating a momentum that's stronger than the individual slip ups.
Exactly. So, to recap, advanced habit stacking is about creating sequences of habits where the completion of one triggers the next. To design your own cascading habits, identify your desired habits, arrange them in a logical order, ensure clear cues for each step, and most importantly, start with very small, manageable habits within each step of the chain. Make those transitions seamless, and you'll build a powerful engine for positive change.
Brilliant. So, we're not just stacking one habit on top of another. We're building a beautiful, interconnected chain of positive actions that propel us forward.
That's the goal. By creating these cascading routines, you make it incredibly easy to accomplish multiple positive behaviors in a row, leveraging momentum and reducing mental friction. It's a highly effective way to build complex routines without feeling overwhelmed. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Unbreakable Habits. Today, we reframe failure into feedback.
Failure. That word alone can feel like a complete stop sign. Can it, Alex? We're conditioned to believe that a slip up means we've failed and should probably give up.
Precisely, Lisa. The typical narrative is that if you miss your intended habit even once, you've lost progress. This often leads to an all-or-nothing mentality. You might think, I missed today, so the whole streak is broken. I'll start over next week. That thinking is a major roadblock to building lasting routines.
I know that feeling well. It's easy to get discouraged and just fall back into old patterns. So, if we're not seeing a missed day as a failure, what should we consider it?
We should see it as feedback. That's the fundamental shift. Instead of a catastrophic event, a deviation from your plan is simply information. It's data about your system, your environment, or even how you're feeling. This makes our never miss twice rule incredibly powerful, not because we're aiming for perfection, but because we're focused on rapid recovery.
Feedback. I really like that distinction. So, if I skip my morning jog, instead of thinking I'm not disciplined enough, I should be asking, why did I skip it? Was my workout gear not ready? Was I too tired from staying up late?
Exactly. You're becoming a detective of your own behavior. You're analyzing the situation to understand the cause, rather than judging yourself harshly. Think of a baker testing a new recipe. If the cake doesn't turn out quite right, they don't throw out the entire concept of baking. They analyze what went wrong. Perhaps too much flour, or the oven temperature was off. They learn from it to adjust the next attempt.
That's a perfect analogy. The habit is the recipe, and the missed day is the less than perfect cake. We don't abandon baking, we improve the recipe. So, how can we actively use this feedback to make our habits stronger?
The first step is a conscious effort to change how you perceive the deviation. When you notice you've missed your habit, pause. Don't ignore it or dwell in guilt. Instead, ask yourself, what prompted this deviation? Was it something external, like an unexpected interruption? Was it internal, like feeling exhausted or stressed? Or perhaps the habit itself was too demanding for that day's circumstances?
So, it's about increasing our self-awareness, paying attention to the context surrounding the missed habit.
Precisely. And once you've identified a potential cause, you can then tweak your system. For example, if you consistently miss your evening reading because you're too tired after dinner, you might adjust your habit architecture. Perhaps your minimum viable habit for that day needs to be just 5 minutes, or maybe you need to prepare your reading spot earlier in the day. Alternatively, if you find your morning meditation is often skipped due to a rush start, you could set out your meditation cushion the night before, making the very first action smoother.
This sounds like we're intentionally designing our habits to be more robust, anticipating challenges rather than just hoping for the best.
That's exactly it. This is the essence of building resilience. Truly resilient systems are designed to handle disruptions and bounce back quickly. They don't crumble at the first sign of trouble. This reframing turns what we call failure into an ongoing process of improvement. We discover what actually works in real life, not just what sounds good in theory.
And this directly reinforces our never miss twice principle. If you miss a day and you have this feedback loop in place to understand why, you're much more likely to resume your habit the very next day. You've already diagnosed the issue and made a simple adjustment, making the next attempt more achievable.
Correct. The never miss twice rule is about swift recovery, not about never making a mistake. It's a defense against a chain reaction of missed days. When you have a clear process for analyzing your deviations, you break that negative cycle before it gains unstoppable momentum. You're not chasing an impossible streak. You're building a reliable system that can navigate the inevitable imperfections of life.
To sum up for our listeners, we're shifting our view of a missed habit away from seeing it as a personal failure and towards understanding it as valuable feedback. This requires a deliberate change in perspective, moving from self-criticism to thoughtful analysis. We need to ask ourselves why we deviated, considering both external and internal factors.
And then, critically, we use that understanding to adapt our habit system. This might involve simplifying a habit, changing how it's stacked, or adjusting its timing. This proactive approach to potential problems is what truly builds resilience into our routines. It ensures we're not just building habits, but habits that can endure life's unpredictability. This failure as feedback approach, combined with our commitment to never miss twice, creates a powerful engine for lasting progress.
It's about embedding a growth mindset directly into how we build our habits. Recognizing that progress can be messy and nonlinear, and that stumbles are opportunities to learn and refine, not indictments of our capabilities.
Precisely. And by doing this, we escape the destructive all-or-nothing trap that hinders long-term success. We allow for the natural complexities of life while still moving forward toward our goals. This reframing is fundamental to creating truly unbreakable habits.
This has been incredibly helpful, Alex. It offers such an empowering perspective on those moments when we deviate from our intended paths.
It truly does, Lisa. And it's a crucial step as we prepare to sustain these strong habits through significant life changes. Next episode, The Long Game, Sustaining Habits Through Life Changes. Welcome back to Unbreakable Habits. Today, we're tackling habit maintenance through life changes.
Life rarely stays still, Alex. We face career shifts, new families, and relocations, all sorts of big changes. How do we keep our unbreakable habits going?
It's a crucial question because disruptions are inevitable. The goal is habits that can weather storms. Remember how we talked about habits as building blocks? Today, we're reinforcing those blocks so they don't crumble when the ground shifts.
So it's about adapting and being flexible, not just pushing through?
Exactly. A powerful strategy for sustaining habits through life changes is to have a strong understanding of your why. Reconnecting with the core reason you started a habit becomes more vital when your circumstances change dramatically. Is it for health, mental clarity, or personal growth?
So when the daily schedule is chaotic, you can hold on to the deeper purpose. If a new, stressful job makes a morning meditation habit seem impossible, remembering it reduces anxiety can help find even 5 minutes for it.
Precisely. And that leads us to embracing the minimum viable habit. When life gets hectic, the full version might not be feasible. Instead of abandoning it, you shrink it down to its smallest, most achievable form.
So, if my habit is a 30-minute workout and I only have 10 minutes, I do those 10 minutes. Or if I read 20 pages and I'm exhausted, I read just one paragraph.
You've got it. This is flexible consistency. It's about maintaining the essence of the habit and honoring the commitment, even if execution differs. The never miss twice rule is also incredibly helpful here. If you miss a day due to a sudden event, don't let snowball. Get back on track with your minimum viable habit the next day.
That makes so much sense. It's like building resilience into the habit itself. We're aiming for continuity, not perfection.
And speaking of resilience, let's talk about identity. We explored anchoring habits to identity. When major life changes occur, our sense of self can feel shaken. Reaffirming who you are, independent of immediate circumstances, is a powerful anchor.
So, if I've experienced a career change and my identity as a teacher feels fuzzy, how do I anchor to that identity?
You shift the focus from the role to its qualities. Perhaps you're no longer a teacher professionally, but you are still someone who is knowledgeable, enjoys sharing wisdom, and is patient. You can apply those inherent qualities to new habits or new expressions of old habits. If your habit was preparing lesson plans and you're now in a different field, you can still apply that skill of organized preparation to your new work or personal projects by framing it as organizing information or planning my next steps.
That's a fantastic way to put it. It's about extracting the core values and skills that your habits represented, rather than clinging to the specific external manifestation.
Precisely. And this brings us to habit architecture. When life changes, you might need to redesign parts of your habit system. This doesn't mean starting from scratch. It means auditing your existing habits and seeing which ones need adjustment, which can be paused, and which might need to be introduced to support your new life phase.
Redesigning, not rebuilding from the ground up. That's less daunting. So, if I've become a parent and my habit of going to the gym early morning is no longer feasible due to sleep disruption, I might architect a new habit, like short bursts of exercise at home during nap times.
Exactly. And this is where designing for failure becomes incredibly relevant. When you anticipate that life changes will happen, you can proactively build in flexibility and contingency plans. For example, if you know a major relocation is on the horizon, you might prepare a home workout plan or research gyms in your new area before the move.
So, you're preempting the disruption by building some wiggle room and alternative options into your habit system.
Yes, It's about being proactive. And it's important to remember that life changes are stressful. This is where environment design comes back into play. When your external environment shifts, you need to consciously reevaluate your surroundings to make your desired habits as easy as possible.
If I've moved to a new city and my old habit station, my favorite park bench for journaling, for example, is no longer accessible, I need to actively create a new one. Find a new park, a new coffee shop, or designate a new spot in my new home.
You're absolutely right. It's about recreating the cues and triggers that support your habits, even in an unfamiliar environment. And remember, this is a continuous process. Sustaining habits through life changes isn't a one-time fix. It's an ongoing practice of adaptation and refinement.
It sounds like the core principles we've discussed: understanding your why, embracing flexibility, anchoring to identity, architecting your system, and designing for failure are all essential tools for navigating these big life transitions with your habits intact.
They truly are. The unbreakable aspect of these habits comes not from their rigidity, but from their ability to bend, adapt, and persist. When you can maintain your core habits through significant life changes, you build incredible confidence and self-efficacy. You know that even when the ground shifts, you have a solid foundation to stand on.
It's about becoming a master of your own system rather than a victim of circumstance.
Precisely. And as we look ahead, remember that these strategies for sustaining habits are not just about maintaining what you've built. They're about using that strength and resilience to embrace future changes and live a more fulfilling life.
So, to recap for our listeners, when life changes, reconnect with your why, embrace the minimum viable habit to stay consistent, reaffirm your core identity, be prepared to redesign your habit architecture, and proactively design for potential disruptions. It's about flexibility, not rigidity. It's about continuity, not perfection.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. In our next episode, we'll be discussing measuring progress beyond external results. It's about truly understanding your growth, not just the outward signs of success. Next episode, measuring progress beyond external results. Welcome back. Last time we covered sustaining habits through life changes. Now let's tackle measuring progress beyond external results.
That's a great topic, Alex. I've definitely been guilty of only celebrating when I see certain outcomes on the scale or in my work performance. But what about when those external results aren't showing up?
Exactly, Lisa. That's the core of what we're discussing today. Most people measure habits by external outcomes: weight loss, promotion, project completion. But this creates a fragile system because external results are often outside our direct control. What if we measured our habits by something more reliable?
What would that be?
The habit itself?
Precisely. The habit execution itself. Think of it like gardening. A gardener doesn't measure success only by the harvest. They also track consistent watering, proper sunlight, and soil quality. Those are the inputs they control. Habits work the same way.
I like that analogy. So instead of focusing on did I lose 5 pounds, we'd focus on did I consistently make healthy food choices and exercise?
Exactly. This shifts our focus from results to process. When we track the habit itself, we gain control over our measurement. External results might fluctuate due to factors beyond our control, but our habit execution is something we can always track and improve.
That makes a lot of sense. But how do we actually measure the habit itself? What systems work best?
There are several approaches. First is frequency tracking. Did I perform the habit on the scheduled days? This is binary. Either you did or you didn't. Second is duration tracking. How long did you engage with the habit? Third is quality tracking. How well did you execute the habit, even if you did it?
Quality tracking is interesting because it acknowledges that some days we might not be at our best.
Absolutely, Lisa. Quality is especially important for habits like meditation or focused work. Some days might be shorter sessions, but the quality of attention matters more than the quantity. Remember our discussion about minimum viable habits? Quality tracking helps us maintain that standard even when we're having off days.
So, how does this help with resilience? If we're not focusing on the external results, what keeps us motivated?
Excellent question. The motivation comes from internal validation. When we track and celebrate consistent habit execution, we build a different kind of motivation, one based on our identity and our commitment to our system. This is far more resilient than motivation tied to external results.
Can you give an example?
Certainly, imagine someone building a daily writing habit. If they only measure success by finishing a book, they might get discouraged when chapters take longer than expected. But if they measure success by did I write for 30 minutes today, they can celebrate every single writing session, regardless of how much they actually produced.
That's a powerful shift. So the celebration becomes about honoring your commitment to yourself.
Exactly. This builds self-trust. When you consistently show up for your habits, even when results aren't immediate, you develop confidence in your ability to follow through. This self-trust is the foundation of unbreakable habits.
I'm thinking about how this connects to identity, which we discussed earlier in the series.
Great connection. When we measure habit execution, we're essentially measuring how aligned our actions are with our desired identity. If you identify as a writer, then writing daily is the evidence of that identity. Measuring the habit reinforces that identity connection much more strongly than waiting for external validation.
So the habit itself becomes the proof, not the outcome?
Precisely. This is why we call them identity-based habits. The habit is an expression of who you are, not just what you do. When you measure the habit, you're measuring how well you're living that identity.
What about when we do achieve external results? Should we celebrate those too?
Of course, external results are wonderful milestones, but they shouldn't be the primary measurement. Think of them as bonuses, not the main game. The main game is building the system and identity that produces those results consistently.
That makes sense. So external results are the dessert, not the main course?
Exactly. You enjoy the dessert when it comes, but you don't skip the main course. The habit execution is the main course. It's what nourishes your long-term growth and resilience.
How do we implement this in practice?
What are some simple tracking methods?
There are several approaches. Habit stacking with tracking works well. You can link your habit to a tracker app, a physical calendar, or even just a simple checklist. The key is to make the tracking effortless so it doesn't become another burden on your system.
And what about celebrating the progress? How do we celebrate when we're not achieving external results?
Celebration should be proportional to the habit's importance to you. Some celebrations might be small acknowledgments to yourself, a mental yes, I did that, or a check mark on a list. For more significant habits, you might build in larger rewards. The celebration reinforces the positive feeling of consistency.
This feels like it creates a positive feedback loop. The more you celebrate your consistent habit execution, the more motivated you are to continue.
You've got it. That's the power of this approach. It builds momentum that's independent of external circumstances. Remember, external results can be affected by market conditions, other people's actions, or just bad luck. But your commitment to your habit, that's 100% within your control.
So this approach helps us stay motivated even when things aren't going our way externally.
Exactly, Lisa. That's the essence of resilience. When your motivation comes from within, from honoring your commitments and living your identity, external setbacks become less devastating. You know that as long as you keep showing up for your habits, you're making progress.
This connects back to our never miss twice rule too, doesn't it? Missing once is okay, but missing twice starts the breakage pattern.
Perfect connection. When you're measuring habit execution, you can see the pattern developing early. One missed day might not be significant, but two missed days signal a potential pattern. This early detection allows you to course correct before small misses become big breaks in your habit system.
So, measuring the habit itself gives us more data points to work with than just waiting for external results.
That's right. External results often lag behind habit execution. By the time you see the result, the pattern might already be well established. Measuring the habit gives you real-time feedback on your system's health.
This makes me think about how we can adjust our approach when we're not seeing external results. Instead of giving up, we can look at our habit execution data and see where we might need to adjust.
Exactly. This is a crucial mindset shift. When external results aren't appearing, your first thought becomes, how can I adjust my habit system? Rather than, I must be failing. This keeps you in problem-solving mode rather than defeat mode.
That's such a healthier approach to long-term habit building.
It really is, Lisa. The habit journey is a marathon, not a sprint. Measuring your progress through consistent execution helps you stay the course when external results are slow to appear. Remember, the most resilient systems are those that can adapt while maintaining their core commitments.
This has completely changed how I think about tracking my habits. I'm going to start focusing more on my daily execution rather than just waiting for results.
That's the spirit. Remember, the power isn't showing up consistently. The results will follow when you've built the right system and identity. Next episode, dealing with habit drag, reigniting the spark. Welcome back. Today, we're tackling habit drag and how to reignite motivation.
And I'm Lisa. In our last episode, we explored how to truly measure progress without getting caught up in only looking at the big, external results. We talked about focusing on the process and making sure our internal metrics aligned with our goals.
Exactly, Lisa. And that's a perfect lead in to today's topic. Because sometimes, even when we're focused on the process, things start to feel, well, a bit sluggish. We can experience what I like to call habit drag. It's like your well-oiled habit machine is starting to sputter.
Habit drag. That's a great way to put it, Alex. It's that feeling when a habit that used to feel almost automatic, or at least manageable, now feels like a chore. You might find yourself procrastinating, feeling demotivated, or just generally uninspired to do the thing you've successfully been doing for weeks or even months.
Right on. And it's completely normal. In fact, I'd say it's a sign that your habits need a little attention, a little tune-up, not abandonment. Today, we're going to talk about how to deal with this habit drag and, more importantly, how to reignite the spark that got you started in the first place.
So, Alex, when we talk about habit drag, what are some of the common culprits? What causes this feeling of sluggishness to creep in?
That's a fantastic question, Lisa, and it gets to the heart of the matter. One of the biggest culprits is familiarity turning into monotony. Think about your favorite meal. Even if it's delicious, if you ate it every single day, 3 times a day, you'd eventually get tired of it, wouldn't you? Habits can be similar. The novelty wears off, and the routine can feel predictable to the point of being boring.
I can definitely relate to that. My morning coffee ritual is wonderful, but if that's the only thing I have to look forward to in the morning, it might start to lose its luster.
Precisely. Another common cause is unintentional complexity creeping in. When you first design a habit, you likely made it as simple as possible. But over time, we might unconsciously add extra steps, consciously or unconsciously. Maybe your go for a walk habit now involves checking emails beforehand, choosing a new route every time, and listening to a specific podcast episode, when initially it was just about putting on shoes and walking around the block.
Ah, the creeping complexity. I've certainly been there. You're not even sure when it happened, but suddenly your simple habit requires more mental energy.
Exactly. And then there's a shift in your external environment or internal state. Maybe your work schedule changed, you're feeling more stressed, or your sleep patterns are off. These external and internal factors can make a habit that was once easy now feel like wading through mud. It's not that the habit itself is broken, but its context has shifted, making it harder to execute.
So, it's not necessarily that we're failing, but that the habit's environment or our personal capacity has changed.
Precisely. And that brings us to the how, doesn't it? How we tackle this habit drag. The first thing we need to do is revisit your triggers and cues. Remember in episode 8, we discussed how crucial triggers are? They're the environmental cues or internal states that prompt us to perform a habit. When drag sets in, sometimes your original triggers are no longer as effective, or new, competing triggers are popping up.
So, for our walking example, if my trigger was looking at my running shoes by the door, but now those shoes are always covered in yesterday's mail, that trigger might be weakened.
Spot on. So revisit those triggers. Are they still clear? Are they still present? Can you make them more obvious again? Perhaps by putting your workout clothes out the night before or having your water bottle ready on your desk. It's about making that cue loud and clear so your brain easily connects it to the desired action.
And I assume we can also rejuvenate the cue itself? Make it more appealing.
Absolutely. This leads to our second strategy, re-injecting novelty and enjoyment. You don't have to do the exact same thing every time. For our walking habit, could you listen to a new podcast? Try a different route? Walk with a friend? Could you make that part of the habit more enjoyable? For an exercise habit, maybe try a new class or a different type of workout for a week.
That's a great point. It's not about changing the core habit, the walking, but changing the flavor of it.
Exactly. And this is where the idea of flexible consistency we discussed earlier becomes so important. It's not about rigid adherence, but about staying committed to the outcome while being adaptable in the approach.
And what about that creeping complexity you mentioned? How do we combat that?
This is crucial, ruthless simplification. Go back to the absolute basics of your habit. What is the absolute minimum you need to do to call it progress? For that writing habit, maybe it's just writing one sentence. For exercise, it's putting on your shoes. For meditation, it's just sitting down for 1 minute. This is where the minimum viable habit concept from episode 12 is a lifesaver. Remind yourself of that absolute core.
It's about stripping it back to its absolute essence. So, if I found myself spending 15 minutes choosing what to wear for my workout, I could simplify that to just grabbing whatever is clean.
Precisely. And when you do this, you're also reinforcing the never miss twice rule that we talked about in episode 3. If you feel that drag in your simplified habit is just one push-up or 1 minute of meditation, it becomes incredibly easy to do it even when you don't feel like it. That makes it much harder to skip days in a row.
That never miss twice rule is so powerful because it works even with the smallest versions of our habits.
It really does. Now, let's talk about something that can feel counterintuitive but is incredibly effective: planned imperfection. We touched on this in episode 15 when we talked about designing for failure. When you face habit drag, it's a perfect time to intentionally build in some flexibility.
Planned imperfection, tell us more about that.
Instead of aiming for perfect adherence, acknowledge that some days will be harder. You could, for example, pre-decide that on Tuesdays, you'll do half your usual workout duration, or on Fridays, you'll listen to a more passive podcast rather than an educational one. This preemptive flexibility can prevent the feeling of all-or-nothing failure that often fuels habit drag. It's like building a gentle ramp instead of sheer cliff.
So, you're not waiting for a disruption to mess things up. You're proactively building in those grace periods.
Exactly. And often, when you lower the bar for yourself, you might find you exceed it anyway. It removes the pressure. Another powerful technique is to reconnect with your why.
Ah, the foundational motivation.
Yes, when habits become a drag, it's easy to forget why you started them in the first place. Take some time to reflect. What were the goals you were trying to achieve? What are the benefits you experienced early on? Rereading your initial goals or journaling about the positive impacts can reignite that internal drive.
It's like going back to the source, remembering the emotional connection to the outcome.
Absolutely. And sometimes what's needed is not a change to the habit itself, but a change to your mindset around effort and perceived difficulty. We often have an idea of what should be easy. When a habit feels hard, we interpret that as a sign of failure or a problem with the habit. But as we've learned, our capacity fluctuates.
So it's about reframing that feeling of effort not as a bad thing, but as a normal part of the process on certain days.
Precisely. In episode 18, we talked about reframing failure as feedback. This is a perfect application of that. Habit drag is feedback. It's telling you something needs a slight adjustment, a little attention. It's not a judgment on your character or your ability to stick with something.
So, to recap what we've discussed today about dealing with habit drag, we need to first identify the cause, whether it's monotony, creeping complexity, or shifts in our environment. Then, we've got some fantastic tools to reignite that spark. We can revisit and strengthen our triggers and cues. We can re-inject novelty and enjoyment into the habit itself, focusing on flexible consistency. We need to practice ruthless simplification, always returning to the minimum viable habit. We can implement planned imperfection and build in flexibility. And crucially, we can reconnect with our original why and adjust our mindset to see habit drag as feedback, not failure.
That's a brilliant summary, Lisa. And remember, this isn't about reinventing your habits every time you feel a bit of drag. It's about subtle adjustments, small tweaks, and a consistent commitment to improvement, not perfection. These resilient routines are built by tending to them, not by letting them fall into disrepair.
Well said, Alex. It's about nurturing those unbreakable habits.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Next episode, the power of reflection, a habit for unbreakable habits.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. Until then, keep building. Welcome back, everyone, to Unbreakable Habits. We're on episode 22, and we're diving deep into a practice that truly solidifies all the resilience we've been building, the power of reflection.
That's right, Alex. We've talked about designing habits, stacking them, making them flexible, and even how to bounce back from disruptions. But how do we make sure our entire habit system stays strong and adaptable over time? Reflection feels like the secret sauce.
Exactly, Lisa. Think of it this way. You've built this amazing, intricate machine, your habit system. You've checked the gears, oiled the parts, and made sure it runs smoothly. But without regular maintenance and tuning, even the best machine can start to falter. Reflection is that essential maintenance. It's the habit of looking back to see what's working, what's not, and how you can continuously improve.
So, it's not just about doing the habits, but about learning from the doing. It's about conscious observation of our own progress.
Precisely. And a fantastic way to cultivate this habit of reflection is through journaling. Now, I know some of you might hear journaling and think it's too time-consuming or might be intimidating. But we're not talking about writing a novel here. We're talking about focused, intentional reflection.
So, what does a reflective journal entry for habit building actually look like? What questions should we be asking ourselves?
Great question. Let's break it down. You can start by asking yourself, what habits did I intend to practice this week? And how consistently did I show up? This is a straightforward, factual assessment. Then you can dig a little deeper. What went well? Were there specific days or times when it was easier to stick to my habits? Identifying these success factors is crucial.
Ah, so we're looking for patterns of success. And by identifying them, we can try to replicate those conditions.
Absolutely. And just as important as asking, what were the challenges? What obstacles arose? And how did I respond? This is where we identify the friction points in our habit architecture. Were you too tired? Was the cue not strong enough? Was the reward not motivating?
This sounds like we're troubleshooting our own system. And it's not about judging yourself for the challenges, but understanding them.
Exactly. It's about gaining insight, not self-criticism. From there, we can move to the actionable part of reflection. What can I adjust for next week to make things smoother? This is where the real power lies. If you consistently find yourself struggling with your morning journaling habit on Tuesdays, maybe you need to adjust the time, simplify the prompt, or even stack it with another stronger habit.
So, a reflection session isn't just looking back, it's actively re-engineering for the future based on what you've learned. It connects directly back to our habit architecture, doesn't it? We're not just building the house, we're checking the foundations and reinforcing the walls based on how it's weathering the storms.
You've hit the nail on the head. And this process of reflection becomes a meta habit, a habit that supports all your other habits. It's the practice of consciously observing, analyzing, and adapting your habit system. And remember our discussion on flexible consistency? Reflection is the engine that drives that flexibility. It allows you to course correct before a small wobble turns into a massive derailment.
I think for many listeners, the fear might be that if they reflect on their failures, it will demotivate them. How do we frame challenges in a way that fuels progress, not frustration?
That's a critical point, Lisa, and it ties back to episode 18, where we reframed failure as feedback. When you reflect, you're not looking for proof of inadequacy. You're looking for data. If a habit didn't stick, it's not because you're broken, it's because the current design of that habit in your life isn't working under the current conditions. The reflection session is your opportunity to gather that data and tweak the design. Instead of saying, I failed at meditating, you say, meditating for 15 minutes after dinner proved challenging last week. Perhaps starting with 5 minutes before breakfast will be more effective.
That's such a more constructive and empowering way to look at it. It shifts the focus from personal deficiency to system optimization.
Precisely. And speaking of system optimization, we can also use reflection to identify what's working exceptionally well. What habits are flowing effortlessly? What positive outcomes are you seeing? Reflecting on these successes can boost your motivation and remind you of your capabilities. It's a powerful way to reinforce positive momentum. So, your reflection journal could have sections for what worked well and why, and what challenges did I face and what can I learn, followed by actionable steps for next week.
I love that structure. It's balanced, forward-looking, and encouraging. So, how often should we be doing this reflection? Is it daily, weekly, monthly?
For building resilience, weekly reflection is generally ideal. Daily check-ins can be fantastic for immediate accountability and course correction on tasks, like hitting a certain number of steps. But a deeper, more strategic reflection is best done weekly. It gives you enough time to observe meaningful patterns and challenges across several days, rather than getting bogged down in minor daily fluctuations. Think of it as a weekly review, perhaps on a Sunday evening or a Monday morning, to set the tone for the week ahead.
So, a dedicated slot in our week for strategic habit assessment. And what about making this reflection itself a habit? How do we ensure we actually do the reflecting?
We can apply all the principles we've been discussing. First, make it obvious. Schedule it in your calendar. Put your journal or notes app in a visible place. Second, make it attractive. Find a moment and a setting that you enjoy, maybe with a cup of tea in a quiet corner. Third, make it easy. Keep your reflection prompts simple and accessible. Don't overcomplicate it. Start with just 3 key questions. And fourth, make it satisfying. Acknowledge yourself for completing your reflection. Perhaps a small reward, like listening to a favorite song afterwards.
It's like a habit for your habits. And that makes perfect sense because this practice of reflection is what allows us to continually refine our habit architecture. We're not just building it once, we're iterating and improving it constantly. Remember in episode 11, we talked about habit architecture? Reflection is the ongoing development phase of that architecture. It ensures our systems are robust and adaptable to life's inevitable changes.
Exactly. And this leads us to a powerful concept, the future self. When you're reflecting, Ask yourself, what would my future self, who has mastered these habits, tell me right now? This future-oriented perspective can provide incredible clarity and motivation. It helps us connect our present actions to our long-term aspirations.
That's a fantastic anchor. It bridges the gap between the person we are today and the person we're striving to become through these unbreakable habits.
It really does. So, to recap what we've covered today, reflection is a crucial habit for building and maintaining unbreakable routines. It's your personal feedback loop, allowing you to continuously improve your habit system. Key questions to ask yourself weekly include, what habits did I practice and how consistently? What went well and why? What were the challenges and what did I learn? And what can I adjust for next week? By framing challenges as data and focusing on system optimization, you make reflection a powerful tool for progress, not a source of demotivation. And just like any other habit, we can make reflection itself a consistent practice by making it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying.
So, to solidify our journey towards unbreakable habits, we need to commit to this practice of introspection. It's the habit that keeps all our other habits sharp and effective.
This has been episode 22. We are moving closer to the end of our series, and the principles we're discussing now are about long-term sustainability and mastery. Next time, we'll be looking at creating your personal habit operating system.
Can't wait.
See you then. Welcome back. Last time we covered the power of reflection. Now let's build your personal habit operating system.
That's right, Alex. In previous episodes, we've learned so much about building resilient routines. We've explored how habits tie into our identity, the importance of consistency with the never miss twice rule, and how to stack habits effectively. We've also discussed designing for when things go wrong, understanding what triggers our habits, and the vital role of reflection.
Exactly. And now, it's time to truly integrate all these powerful tools. Think of your computer's operating system or the software on your phone. It's the foundation that allows everything else to run smoothly, to communicate, and to make the whole device function. Your personal habit operating system is that foundational framework. It's what makes your habits work together, support each other, and help you navigate life's inevitable disruptions.
So, we're moving beyond individual habits and thinking about a connected, integrated system. How do we start creating this?
The first essential step is to see how all these principles are interconnected. They aren't separate tools. They are components of a larger system. Remember our discussion on identity? That's the core of your operating system. Your habits should align with the person you want to become. If you aim for a healthier life, your habits should reflect that. It's not just about performing actions. It's about being the type of person who performs those actions. Your identity is the bedrock of your operating system.
So, before focusing on specific actions, I need to really clarify my vision of my future self, the person I'm striving to be.
Precisely. Then comes the architecture. Recall habit stacking. This is how you build those connections within your operating system. You don't just run a health habit and a learning habit separately. You link them. You might read a chapter of a book while you do your short workout. This creates a natural dependency, a synergy. One action cues the next, much like applications on your computer interact.
I understand. Stacking helps make habits work in tandem, not just side by side. It creates those smooth transitions.
Exactly. And how do we ensure these connections are strong and dependable? That's where the minimum viable habit plays a key role. This ensures your connections are robust enough to handle pressure. You don't want a system that collapses at the first hurdle. When building your operating system, you design these core links to be strong. You make the initial step incredibly easy, so easy that skipping it is almost impossible. This prevents one weak point from disrupting the entire system.
That makes perfect sense. And what about when things do go off track? We've talked about this often. How does that fit into the operating system concept?
Ah, that's where your system's resilience features come into play. Think of designing for failure. That's your system's built-in error handling. An operating system needs to anticipate and manage glitches or unexpected events smoothly. In our habit context, this means having prearranged responses for disruptions. It's not about perfection. It's about having a strategy for imperfection. This could be sticking to the never miss twice rule or having a specific recovery habit you use after a missed day.
So, the operating system includes not only the ideal scenarios, but also backup plans for when the unexpected arises. It's like having a built-in recovery and backup system.
Precisely. And environmental design is crucial here. Your environment acts as the hardware your operating system runs on. If your hardware is messy or difficult to use, even the best software will struggle. Making your desired actions easy and visible and your undesired actions difficult and hidden is essentially configuring the environment, the hardware, to support your operating system's objectives. Visualize your kitchen counter. If healthy snacks are readily accessible, that's your hardware supporting your healthy eating operating system. If unhealthy snacks are hidden away, the hardware is working for you there too.
That's a very concrete way to look at it. It's about optimizing your surroundings to boost your chosen system's effectiveness. Now, you mentioned reflection earlier. How does that fit into our operating system?
Reflection is like the system's diagnostic tool and update manager. It's how you monitor performance, identify issues, and plan improvements. You're not just letting habits run, you're actively checking if they're working. What's effective? What's not? What needs adjustment? This continuous feedback loop allows your operating system to adapt and improve over time, ensuring it remains resilient and effective. Without reflection, your system becomes stagnant and eventually outdated.
So, the operating system has a learning and adaptation capability. It's not fixed, it evolves.
Indeed. And this is where the concept of flexible consistency becomes so critical. Your operating system shouldn't be rigid. Life is constantly changing. Sometimes you need to adjust its settings. You might need to temporarily reduce the intensity of a habit, much like closing some applications to free up computer resources. The goal is to keep the system operational, even if individual parts need to scale back for a while.
That distinction between flexible consistency and giving up entirely is so important. It's about maintaining the core structure, even when circumstances shift.
And then we have accountability partners. Think of them as external validators or perhaps reviewers of your system's performance. They offer valuable data, external perspectives that can highlight blind spots you might miss during your own reflection. However, the key is using them correctly, not as a source of judgment, but as support for your system's ongoing improvement.
It's like having an external auditor check that your system is running as designed and providing input for optimization.
You've got it. And as we approach the conclusion of our series, we're building towards this idea of a truly unbreakable blueprint. Your personal habit operating system is that blueprint. It's the combination of all these interconnected elements: your identity anchors, your stacked routines, your minimum viable habits, your strategies for handling failure, your environmental configurations, your reflection processes, and your accountability supports.
It sounds like the ultimate objective is to create a self-sustaining, adaptable network of habits that supports long-term growth and resilience. It's not just about individual habits, but how they all function together.
Absolutely. And I want to revisit the idea of reframing failure. Viewing failure as feedback means that when an aspect of your habit operating system isn't working as intended, it's not a sign of personal inadequacy. It's a signal from your system that a particular component needs adjustment. Your operating system should be designed to interpret this feedback, not to shut down.
So, when a habit feels like it's becoming a struggle, that's the operating system indicating something needs attention, rather than it being a personal failing.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that the system itself might need an update or recalibration. Think of your entire habit journey as building and maintaining this sophisticated personal operating system. It requires attention, adjustments, and continuous effort. But the reward is immense. A life lived with greater purpose, control, and resilience, no matter what challenges you encounter.
This is a powerful way to consolidate everything we've learned. It's not just a list of techniques, but a complete framework, a personal operating system for building and maintaining unbreakable habits.
It truly is. And in our next episode, we're going to delve into how your future self can become your most powerful accountability partner, further strengthening this integrated system. Next episode, the future self as your best accountability partner. Last time, we explored creating your personal habit operating system. Now, let's tackle your future self as your accountability partner.
Your future self? How can someone who doesn't exist yet hold me accountable?
They do exist, Lisa, as your aspirations and the results of your actions. Everything you do now directly shapes who you will become. Your future self is the embodiment of your present choices.
So, it's about visualizing that future person and aligning our current habits with who we want to be.
Exactly. It's a powerful psychological tool. When facing temptation, ask yourself, what would my future self, who has achieved X, Y, and Z, want me to do right now? This shifts focus from short-term comfort to long-term reward.
That reframes the decision. Instead of, I don't want to do this now, it becomes, my future self will thank me for doing this now.
Precisely. We've discussed identity anchors. Habits are powerful when they reflect who you believe you are. Connecting with your future self amplifies this. You're constructing the identity of a person who possesses those habits and reaps their benefits.
How do we actually connect with this future self? Is it just wishful thinking?
Not all. It starts with vivid visualization. Imagine that future you. What does your life look like? What have you accomplished, and how do you feel? Make it detailed and sensory. If aiming for a healthier lifestyle, picture yourself with vibrant energy. If it's career success, imagine the satisfaction of a project completed.
So, it's like creating a mental movie of your ideal future.
A very active movie. Then you bridge the gap. Ask, what habits need to be in place for that future to become a reality? Review your current routines and see how they serve or sabotage this future vision.
This means even small habits have a massive impact on that future. Not breaking the never miss twice rule today ensures a more successful future self.
Absolutely. Every time you uphold a habit, you're sending a positive message to your future self. This creates a powerful feedback loop. The more you act in alignment with your future self, the more that future self feels real, reinforcing your current commitment.
It's like a positive reinforcement cycle for personal growth.
Exactly. This applies even to everyday decisions. Suppose you're trying to save money. Your future self might be planning a comfortable retirement. When faced with an impulse purchase, ask yourself, would my future self, who values financial security, approve of this purchase right now?
This is incredibly helpful. It's like having a wise advisor whispering in your ear, guiding your choices.
And that advisor is you, evolved. This also helps with disruptions and setbacks. When things go wrong, ask your future self, how did you navigate challenges like this and stay on track? This encourages a more resilient, problem-solving mindset.
So, instead of dwelling on the failure, you're tapping into the wisdom of someone who has already overcome it.
Precisely. Your future self has context, perspective, and the experience gained from all the habits you're building now. By connecting with them, you borrow that resilience and foresight.
This is more than just motivation. It's about fostering a deep sense of purpose and continuity between who we are today and who we aspire to become.
It is. You're not just a collection of fleeting moments. You are a developing entity. Your future self becomes your ultimate accountability partner because they have the most at stake. They're the direct beneficiary of your disciplined actions today.
Let's recap. We've talked about connecting with your future self as an accountability tool. First, vividly visualize your ideal future, making it detailed and sensory. Then, identify the habits necessary to achieve that future. Finally, use this future vision as a guiding principle for your daily decisions, asking yourself what your future self would want you to do. This taps into identity anchors, fosters resilience, and promotes a consistent path towards your goals.
It's a profound shift in perspective. By embracing your future self, you're not just building habits, you're architecting your destiny with an unwavering partner.
And that partner is always cheering you on, reminding you of what's truly important.
Indeed. So, next time you're facing a choice, don't just think about what you want in this moment. Think about what your future self deserves. Next episode, Overcoming Complacency, the continuous improvement of habits. Welcome back. Last time, we explored how your future self can serve as your ultimate accountability partner. Now, it's time to tackle a challenge that can creep in once habits are established: complacency.
That's right, Alex. It's a sneaky one. You've worked hard to build these routines, and they're becoming second nature.
You feel good about them.
But then, slowly, you might start to coast. You're doing the habit, but are you still truly growing with it?
Exactly. The goal of unbreakable habits isn't just to get them done, but to ensure they continue to serve you and help you evolve. Stagnation is the quiet enemy of resilience. So, Lisa, how do we actively fight off that feeling of good enough when our habits are working?
I think the core idea is shifting from simply maintaining habits to actively improving them. It's about embracing continuous refinement. Think of it like a skilled musician who never stops practicing, even after mastering a piece. They find new nuances, new ways to express the music.
That's a great analogy. So, it's not about breaking the habit if it's still serving a purpose, but about finding ways to deepen its effectiveness or integrate it more powerfully into our lives. What are some concrete ways to implement this continuous improvement mindset?
One powerful strategy is to regularly revisit the why behind your habit. We often establish habits based on initial goals. But as we grow and our circumstances change, our underlying motivations might evolve. Asking yourself, why am I still doing this? Can re-inject purpose.
So it's like your initial motivation might have been to lose 20 pounds, but now that you've achieved that, the why might shift to maintaining energy for your family or sharpening your mental focus.
Precisely. And that shift in why can lead to adjustments. If your why is now about mental sharpness, maybe you adjust your morning exercise habit to include more complex movements or a short meditation afterward, rather than just focusing on cardio. This keeps the habit relevant.
That makes so much sense. It's about evolving the habit along with yourself. What else can we do?
Another technique is to introduce small, deliberate challenges. If you have a habit of reading 20 pages a day, maybe for a week, you aim for 25. Or if you're learning a new language and have a daily vocabulary practice, try learning a few new words related to a specific, more complex topic.
So, you're deliberately nudging the difficulty level slightly, just enough to keep your brain engaged and prevent it from going on autopilot. This reminds me of the concept of deliberate practice we touched upon earlier in the series.
Yes, it's very similar. It's about pushing your boundaries in a controlled way. And it doesn't have to be a huge leap. A small increase in effort or complexity can make a difference. The key is that it's intentional.
And I imagine this applies not just to the action itself, but also to the environment surrounding the habit.
Absolutely. Remember when we discussed habit architecture? We can continually refine our environment, If your habit is mindfulness, perhaps you introduce a calming scent into your meditation space or upgrade your journal for your journaling habit. Small sensory enhancements can keep things fresh.
It's like giving your habits a refresh, even when they're running smoothly. Lisa, you mentioned shifting from maintenance to improvement. How do we know when an improvement is working or when we might be pushing too hard?
That's where reflection comes back into play. We've talked about reflection as a habit in itself. Regularly ask yourself, is this adjustment adding value? Am I feeling more engaged? Or am I feeling overwhelmed and resentful? The feedback from your own experience is crucial.
So, the reflection habit acts as our internal feedback loop for habit improvement. It helps us calibrate.
Exactly.
And importantly, this improvement doesn't always need to be about increasing difficulty. Sometimes it's about increasing efficiency or finding joy. If your habit is meal prepping, maybe you discover a new recipe that takes less time, or a cooking method that makes the food taste even better.
That's a brilliant point. It's not just about rigor, but also about optimization and enjoyment. Because a habit that feels like a chore, even if it's consistent, is less likely to be unbreakable in the long run.
Right.
Complacency can also stem from a lack of novelty. So, introducing variety within the habits framework, if applicable, can be very effective. For example, if your habit is learning a language, you might switch between reading articles, listening to podcasts, and practicing with a conversation partner.
This keeps the learning dynamic and engaging. So, to recap for our listeners, to overcome complacency in our habits, we need to actively shift from just maintaining them to continuously improving them. This involves revisiting our why to ensure relevance, introducing small, deliberate challenges, refining our habit environment, and crucially, using reflection to gauge our progress and ensure enjoyment.
And remember, this continuous improvement isn't about perfection, but about sustained growth. It's about keeping your habits alive, vibrant, and aligned with who you are becoming. It's a proactive approach to ensuring your routines don't just work, but work better over time.
It's about making sure your habits don't become a comfortable rut, but a pathway for ongoing development. This focus on continuous improvement is a vital component for building truly unbreakable routines that stand the test of time and change. Next time, we'll explore the courage it takes to face chaos with an unbreakable mindset. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time, we tackled overcoming complacency. Now, let's explore the unbreakable mindset.
That sounds powerful, Alex. We've spent the last 25 episodes talking about the practical side, habit stacking, minimum viable habits, and systems. But you're saying there's an even deeper layer to becoming truly unbreakable?
Exactly, Lisa. Think about it. Your habits are your systems, your architecture for success. But what happens when the ground beneath those systems starts to shake? What happens when chaos strikes? That's where the unbreakable mindset comes in. It's the psychological bedrock that allows your habits to not just survive, but to thrive, even when everything else feels like it's falling apart.
So, it's not just about having a good habit system, but having the mental fortitude to stick with it when things get tough.
Precisely. And a huge part of this mindset is courage. Now, when we hear the word courage, we often think of grand, heroic gestures. But in the context of daily life and habits, courage often looks much quieter. It's the courage to start over after a setback. It's the courage to try a new habit even if you've failed many times before. It's the courage to acknowledge you've veered off course and then, with quiet determination, to get back on track.
That's a great reframing. It makes courage feel more accessible, more like something we can practice every day.
And that's one of the core ideas. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting in spite of fear. When a disruption hits, maybe a personal crisis, a work challenge, or even just a truly overwhelming week, It's natural to feel fear or anxiety. Your old habits might crumble. Your perfectly designed system might feel impossible to maintain. The courageous response isn't to despair or give up. It's to acknowledge those feelings and then to ask, what is the smallest, most resilient action I can take right now? This connects back beautifully to our concept of the minimum viable habit.
Yes.
So, when life throws a curveball, instead of abandoning our habits, we shrink them down to their absolute essential core. The never miss twice rule becomes even more critical in these moments.
Absolutely. It's about preserving the habit itself, even in a weakened, minimal form. Think of it like this. If your house is damaged by a storm, you don't abandon the land. You shore up the foundation, you clear the debris, and you start rebuilding, even if it's just a temporary shelter at first. That temporary shelter is your minimum viable habit. That act of continued effort, however small, is courage in action.
And that leads us to grit, right? Because maintaining that minimal habit, that act of courage, requires persistence.
Exactly. Grit is that unwavering dedication to your long-term goals, coupled with a passionate commitment. It's about having perseverance and passion for very long-term goals. It's not about brute force. It's about sustained effort. When we've talked about identity anchoring your habits, that's building psychological grit. If your identity is that of a healthy person and you've built habits around that identity, then a disruption becomes a challenge to your identity. The gritty response is to fight to reclaim that identity through small, consistent actions, even when it's difficult.
So, even if you miss your morning workout because of an emergency, your grit kicks in to ensure you get a 10-minute walk in the evening, or you make sure to do something the next day. It's about not letting one missed day become an excuse for a missed week or a missed month.
You've got it. And this brings us to proactivity. Resilient people, those with an unbreakable mindset, don't wait for their habits to be destroyed by chaos. They actively build systems that anticipate it. Remember when we discussed designing your environment? That's a proactive step. If you know travel is a frequent disruption, you proactively curate a travel-friendly kit for your habits. You don't wait until you're stuck in a hotel room to figure out what to do.
That makes so much sense. It's about foreseeing potential disruptions and building safeguards into our habits before they happen. It's like having an insurance policy for your routines.
That's a great analogy, and it ties back to the idea of habit architecture. We build our habits as a system, but with this unbreakable mindset, we design that system with resilience in mind. We build in flexibility, we create contingency plans, and we empower ourselves to adapt. This isn't about rigid adherence. It's about flexible consistency.
Flexible consistency that really encapsulates it. It means we have a goal and a plan, but we also have the mental grace and the built-in adaptability to adjust when needed without abandoning the overall mission.
And this proactive approach also involves reframing our perspective on failure. Remember in episode 18, we talked about reframing failure as feedback? The unbreakable mindset takes this even further. When a disruption makes it impossible to perform a habit as usual, the unbreakable individual doesn't see it as a personal failure. They see it as valuable data. Okay, they might think, this situation made my usual routine impossible. What can I learn from this to make my system more robust for next time?
So, instead of beating yourself up for missing a workout because you had to rush to care for a sick child, you're analyzing why it was hard and how you might prepare better in the future, perhaps by having shorter, more adaptable habits ready to go.
Precisely. It's about a continuous feedback loop. Your habits are not static monuments. They are living, evolving systems. The unbreakable mindset is what allows you to engage with that evolution actively and positively, rather than being a passive victim of circumstance. It's about using disruptions as opportunities for growth and refinement.
It sounds like it's about shifting from a mindset of perfection to a mindset of progress and persistence, even if that progress looks different from day to day.
That's a beautiful summary, Lisa. The unbreakable mindset is about unwavering commitment. not to a perfectly executed plan, but to the underlying goal and the process of continuous improvement. It's the internal engine that drives our habits forward, allowing us to navigate chaos with courage, to persist with grit, and to proactively build systems that can withstand the unexpected.
So, to recap for our listeners, the unbreakable mindset is built on three key pillars: courage, which is acting in spite of fear, often by choosing the smallest possible action to maintain momentum; grit, which is sustained passion and perseverance towards long-term goals, ensuring that setbacks don't derail us; and proactivity, which involves anticipating disruptions and building resilient, adaptable systems before they're needed.
You've nailed it. Courage keeps us moving when we're scared, grit keeps us moving when we're tired, and proactivity ensures our systems are strong enough to handle the journey. Together, they form the psychological core of what makes our habits and ourselves truly unbreakable.
This has been such an insightful look at the deeper aspects of habit formation. It's not just about the what and how, but the why and the who we are becoming.
Indeed. And the good news is this mindset isn't something you're born with. It's something you build habit by habit, courageous act by courageous act.
Thank you, Alex. This episode really solidifies why our habits are more than just routines. They are a reflection of our inner strength.
Thank you, Lisa. And for our listeners, remember that the next time life feels chaotic, your unbreakable mindset is your most powerful tool. Next episode, the serendipity of systems, unexpected rewards of unbreakable habits. Welcome back. Last time we discussed the unbreakable mindset. Now, let's explore the serendipity of systems.
That's right, Alex. It's like tending a garden. You plant seeds with intention, you water them, you nurture them. You expect flowers, maybe some vegetables. But then, unexpectedly, you notice a whole ecosystem blooming. Beneficial insects arrive. The soil becomes richer, and everything starts thriving in a beautiful, interconnected way. That's the serendipity of systems.
Exactly. We've been talking about habit architecture, designing our systems for success, and making them resilient. We've learned about habit stacking, creating keystone habits, and the power of consistency, even when life throws curveballs. Now, we're going to explore those beautiful, unexpected rewards that emerge when our habit systems mature.
So, we've moved from just doing things to having a robust framework that supports our goals and well-being. And this framework isn't just about checking boxes. It's about creating a foundation that allows for growth and adaptation that we might not have planned for.
Precisely. Think about it. When you establish a solid morning routine, say, waking up, drinking water, a few minutes of mindfulness, and then exercising, you're not just getting those individual actions done. You're creating a ripple effect. That calm start to the day often leads to better focus throughout your work. That exercise might give you more energy for personal projects later.
And it's not just about individual benefits. This interconnectedness can lead to increased capacity. When your systems are running smoothly, you're not constantly expending mental energy just to get things done. You're not fighting yourself. This frees up significant mental bandwidth.
That's a crucial point, Lisa. We call it habit drag, sometimes when every little action feels like a monumental effort. But when your habits are ingrained, when your system is well-oiled, that drag disappears. And with that freed up capacity, you suddenly find you have more room to take on new challenges, to learn new skills, or to handle unexpected demands without feeling overwhelmed.
It's like expanding your personal reservoir. Before, you might have had just enough energy for your planned activities. But now, with your habits efficiently managed, you have a surplus. This surplus can be directed towards opportunities that arise, or even towards proactively tackling potential problems before they become major issues.
This is where the unbreakable aspect truly shines. It's not just about bouncing back from setbacks. It's about the proactive strength and expanded capability that a resilient system provides. Remember when we talked about the never miss twice rule? That's about building a system that prevents you from falling too far off track. But the serendipity is what happens when that system is so robust that it actually propels you forward.
So, it's not just a safety net, it's a launch pad. We've diligently built these habits, piece by piece, understanding triggers, consistency, and reframing failure. Now, these systems are starting to generate outcomes we might not have consciously aimed for, but that are incredibly beneficial.
Let's look at an example. Suppose someone implemented a habit of reading for 15 minutes each night. Initially, the goal might be to learn a new skill or simply to wind down. But over time, this consistent reading can lead to a broader knowledge base, improved vocabulary, and a heightened ability to connect disparate ideas. This, in turn, might spark a new business idea or lead to a promotion because they can communicate more effectively.
And that wasn't the direct goal of the 15 minutes of reading. The goal was simpler, but the system of consistent reading had a broader, synergistic effect. This is often how great leaps in creativity or problem solving occur, not from a single, direct effort, but from the fertile ground created by a well established system.
This expanded capacity also makes us more adaptable. We've been talking about navigating disruptions, but a strong habit system, over time, builds an internal resilience that goes beyond just recovering from a single event. It creates a general robustness. When a new challenge arises, our existing systems help us absorb the shock without completely derailing. We don't have to rebuild everything from scratch. We can integrate the new into the existing framework.
It's like building a sturdy house that's also designed to be easily renovated or expanded. You know the foundation is solid, so adding a new room or adapting to changing needs feels manageable, not overwhelming. This is a stark contrast to trying to build something new each time a challenge appears.
And this connects directly to our identity. When your habits are consistent and your systems are reliable, your belief in your own ability to achieve things grows. You become the kind of person who can build and maintain these effective routines. This self-perception, reinforced by the success of your systems, is incredibly powerful. It fuels further growth and makes you more open to the unexpected positive outcomes.
So, for our listeners who have been diligently working through this series, the message today is one of delightful discovery. You're not just creating routines, you're cultivating an environment for unexpected excellence. The effort you've put into building these unbreakable habits is now paying dividends in ways you might not have even foreseen.
And it's this very serendipity that makes the journey so rewarding. It's the unexpected insights that emerge from consistent learning, the new connections fostered by reliable social habits, the creative bursts that come from a well-managed mind. These are the beautiful byproducts of a life lived with intention and supported by strong, resilient systems.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the foundational importance of habits to the advanced architecture of resilience. We've learned to design for disruption, to embrace consistency, and to view failures as feedback. Today, we're seeing how all of that hard work culminates in something even greater, a system that generates unexpected opportunities and expands our very capacity to live.
So, keep tending your habit garden. Continue to refine your personal operating system, because the most exciting rewards of building unbreakable habits are often the ones you never saw coming. They're the gifts that robust systems, nurtured with care and consistency, so generously provide.
It's a testament to the power of small, consistent actions over time, creating compounding positive effects. The journey from random actions to intentional, thriving living is a journey toward unlocking this incredible serendipity.
Now, as we approach the final episodes of our series, we'll be bringing all these threads together to build your ultimate unbreakable blueprint. You've got the tools, you've got the understanding. Next time, we'll show you how to assemble them into your complete plan for an unbreakable life. Next episode, bringing it all together, your unbreakable blueprint. Welcome back. Last time we explored the serendipity of systems. Now, let's bring it all together.
Today, we're creating your comprehensive guide to unbreakable habits.
Remember, habits are far more powerful than motivation. Motivation is fleeting. Habits are the consistent actions that create lasting change. It's the compounding effect of small, repeated actions that leads to real transformation.
And when you stumble, the never miss twice rule is your best friend. One missed day is fine, but two starts a new, unwanted pattern. It's about recovery, not perfection.
Anchoring habits to your identity is crucial. It's not just about doing a habit, but being the kind of person who does that habit. Readers read, exercisers exercise. It becomes an extension of who you are.
We've covered the practical side too. Linking new habits with existing ones through habit stacking makes new behaviors automatic. You do X, then you do Y.
The Keystone habit is a single habit that creates a ripple effect, naturally encouraging other positive behaviors. Think of exercise leading to better eating and sleep. It's a foundational habit.
Understanding your triggers and cues, those prompts that start your habits, gives you control. You can leverage them for good or avoid them for bad.
Flexible consistency is key when life isn't perfect. Embrace the minimum viable habit, the smallest possible version of your habit, to keep it alive, even if it's just for a few minutes.
Life throws curveballs, so habit architecture, building a resilient system, is vital. This framework helps you navigate disruptions like travel or illness.
And designing for failure is smart. Anticipate problems and build solutions in advance. Pre-pack your gym bag if you know mornings might be rushed.
Your environment plays a huge role. Make positive habits easy and negative ones difficult by adjusting your surroundings. Your desired path should be the easiest.
We explored advanced habit stacking, creating cascading habits where one action naturally leads to the next, building momentum.
When we stumble, reframe failure as feedback. It's data for learning and refining your system, not a personal failing.
Sustaining habits through life changes is the long game. Your habits need to adapt as you grow, just like tending a garden.
Measuring progress beyond external results is important. Internal shifts like confidence and focus are profound, even if unseen.
Dealing with habit drag means reigniting the spark. Revisit your why, tweak the habit, or recommit to consistency.
The power of reflection helps here. Regularly reviewing your habits creates a meta habit, a habit for building better habits.
This reflection helps create your personal habit operating system, your tailored strategy for formation and maintenance.
Your future self can be your best accountability partner. Envisioning their success motivates present action.
Guard against complacency with continuous improvement. Always look for ways to refine and optimize.
The unbreakable mindset, courage in the face of chaos, is your anchor. Our habits keep us steady, but our mindset lets us persevere.
The serendipity of systems brings unexpected positive rewards. Discipline in one area spills over, opening new doors.
So, your unbreakable blueprint is this. Habits are your consistent actions. Consistency, with the never miss twice rule, keeps them alive. Identity is your anchor. You build with tools like habit stacking and Keystone habits, supported by your environment. You anticipate disruptions, reframe failures, and reflect. This creates your living operating system, guided by your future self, always improving, with a resilient mindset.
You have a knowledge and strategies. Now, it's time to build your unbreakable blueprint. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Unbreakable Habits. This is our final episode.
It's been an incredible journey, Alex. We've learned why habits are more potent than fleeting motivation, the magic of the never miss twice rule, and how to anchor our habits to our very identity.
Exactly, Lisa. We've explored habit stacking, designing minimum viable habits, and even how to navigate disruptions and the importance of environmental design. We've talked about embracing failure as feedback and a long game of habit maintenance.
And in our last episode, we brought it all together, creating our personal habit operating system and understanding the power of our future self as an accountability partner.
This episode, Beyond Habits, Living an Unbreakable Life, is about how these principles transcend the daily to-do list. It's about cultivating a broader sense of resilience and adaptability. We've built the tools for unbreakable habits, and now we'll discuss how to use them to live an unbreakable life.
So, Alex, we've spent a lot of time focusing on the mechanics of habits. How do we shift our perspective to see how these habits translate into a more resilient life overall?
That's a great question, Lisa. Think about the core principles we've discussed. The never miss twice rule, for instance. It's about preventing small slip-ups from becoming major derailments. When applied to life, this translates to addressing minor problems before they grow too large. It's a proactive approach to challenges rather than a reactive one.
So, it's about cultivating a mindset of constant, gentle correction rather than waiting for a crisis to force change?
Precisely. And remember habit stacking? We learn to link new habits to existing ones, making them easier to adopt. In the context of a resilient life, this means creating a supportive ecosystem of practices. If you have a strong morning routine, it becomes easier to layer in a new habit related to learning or well-being. It's about building interconnected strengths.
That makes sense. It's like creating a positive chain reaction in our lives. Small, consistent actions build upon each other to create a strong foundation.
Absolutely. And our discussion on minimum viable habits, starting small and focusing on consistency over intensity, is crucial for resilience. Life throws curveballs. Sometimes the only habit you can manage is the absolute smallest version of it. A resilient person doesn't abandon the goal entirely. They dial it back to what's manageable and keep the momentum going.
I remember that. It's the idea that doing something is always better than doing nothing. It keeps the habit alive in our minds and bodies.
Exactly. And when we talked about designing for failure, building resilience into your system, that's life proof. We acknowledge that setbacks will happen, but instead of letting them break us, we've designed our systems, and by extension our lives, to absorb those impacts and bounce back.
So the failure we talked about in terms of habits, like missing a day at the gym, becomes reframed when we look at our overall lives. It's not a sign of personal inadequacy, but a signal to adjust our approach.
Yes, we've learned to view failure as valuable feedback. In an unbreakable life, this means we don't get discouraged by obstacles. We analyze them. What went wrong? What do we learn? This continuous learning loop is the engine of resilience. It's about adapting and evolving, not just sticking to a rigid plan.
It sounds like the core of living an unbreakable life is about adaptability, isn't it? Being able to pivot when circumstances change drastically.
Adaptability is key. And courage. Remember our episode on the unbreakable mindset, courage in the face of chaos? Habits provide structure, a sense of control. When that structure is challenged, those habits give us the confidence and the practice behaviors to navigate the uncertainty. There are anchors in stormy seas.
And those anchors, those habits, often lead to unexpected rewards we might not have foreseen. That serendipity of systems we discussed.
That's right. When you consistently show up, when you're building those small wins, the universe often conspires to open new doors. You might meet the right people through a networking habit or discover a passion through consistent learning. Life's unpredictability becomes a source of opportunity, not just fear.
This whole series has been about building a robust personal infrastructure. It's not just about sticking to a diet or exercise plan. It's about building a life that can handle whatever comes its way. It's about a fundamental shift in how we approach challenges and opportunities.
And that's the essence of living an unbreakable life. It's about recognizing that the systems and principles we've built for our habits are, in fact, the very foundations of our resilience. It's about living with intention, embracing the process, and trusting our ability to adapt and overcome.
So, as we wrap up this final episode, Alex, what's our parting message to our listeners who have journeyed with us through this series?
Our parting message is simple. You possess the tools to live an unbreakable life. The principles of resilient habits are not confined to specific routines. They're principles for living. Embrace the unpredictable with curiosity and confidence. Trust the systems you've built and never underestimate the power of showing up consistently.
You've learned to architect your environment, to stack your wins, to reframe setbacks, and to connect with your future self. All these elements combine to create a life that is not just about achieving goals, but about thriving no matter what.
So go out there and live your unbreakable life. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey.
Thanks for listening to the series.